right, so welcome into the live stream tonight. We are, of course, going to be doing a special broadcast for you guys through election night to try to knock down the coverage of what's happening in the election, of course, for the President of the United States. We'll break it all down for you. We have a whole slew of interviews. You don't want to miss those. It's going to be amazing. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome into tonight, Crypto for America. And of course, I do want to thank our sponsor today, and that, of course, is Coinbase. Coinbase is a great place if you're brand new to crypto and you want to get started, or maybe you have been in crypto for a while and you're thinking, I want to kind of diversify a little bit. Well, this is a place to go. Visit Coinbase.com. The future of money is there. And of course, this is for both for individuals and businesses. So check it out. Use our link. It does help you get started. You get $200 in crypto to kind of get rolling, and it helps the channel, of course. Listen, guys, we are going to have an amazing night of coverage for you. We, of course, are going to be watching some of the polls as they start to roll in from state by state. Try to get to as much of that and the impact on crypto that this election will have. So we'll definitely give you guys as many updates as we can. Also joining us is going to be a handful of, I think, people that you'll recognize. Mark Moss will be joining us tonight. We'll also have Cody Carbone joining us from the Digital Chamber, which is going to be an amazing conversation. And then we'll also do some trading. We'll take a look at some charts. So make sure, kind of buckle up a little bit, get some popcorn, and let's go through it tonight. I want to go in and really kind of lead off with what's going on over on Polymarket right now. And this has been a forecast that has been up and down. Everybody, I think, out there has been following our channel, has probably recognized this, and that is the movement. I'll zoom in on this a little bit because this is where it gets really interesting over time. Back here, we started to see this around October 4th, which is when the split started to occur and Trump really took a commanding lead. That, of course, started to adjust down here just in the last week and really drew the two candidates very, very close together. Now, of course, Trump has taken another little bump up and holds right now, as we're doing this broadcast, at 61% likelihood on the prediction betting markets of who will be the next president. Of course, we'll be watching this throughout the night because it's interesting. Polymarket is very, very fluid as the night will show. I think you guys will get a chance to see that. We'll also be covering the 270 to win, and this will give us a lot more insight of what's going. This right now is the map overlay of the Polymarket odds. We'll be taking a look at some of the key states, of course, Ohio, which we know about, Pennsylvania, which will be huge, and then some of the battlegrounds that I think are really going to essentially set the destiny of the next president of the United States. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And of course, we'll get through and do a handful of coverage on that. We've got some clips for you playing throughout, a lot of stuff going to be covering tonight. And then we'll also take a look at the charts itself. And this was kind of interesting to me. This was a Polymarket ad that came on. I'm going to go in and play this. I don't know if I've got my audio here, but I'm going to go in and play this for you guys because there's something that's very unique at the end that you need to watch. Let's go ahead and play that real quick. And I want to show this because this will give you some insights on where Polymarket is going. And part of this, you'll see it here at the end. I don't want to get a copyright nail, so sometimes they use music that will do that. But you can kind of see, obviously, this is going into the election. And then towards the end of the ad, you'll see something kind of interesting here that is pretty cool, that could maybe set the destiny of where Polymarket is going with their strategy. And it's right after this frame, right about here as they go out. Now check this out right here as we near into it. Boom, create your own market. Could that be in line with what Polymarket is set to do in not only in predictive, but I think also around companies, all sorts of sports leagues? We could see a lot of variables that could play into that. And remember, Polymarket, the ETH ecosystem, a big deal going forward. So lots happening out there with Polymarket. And of course, we'll be watching that throughout the night. Let's take a look quickly at Bitcoin. Of course, has had a very nice day of, and many people are concerned that this might be a nice little bull trap that is playing out right now, holding it at 69.9, 69.5 right now on this green candle. And I'm on the daily right now. As you can kind of see, there's a few things that are happening. The money flow has been holding somewhat with our MSI indicator. And I think the key here with Bitcoin, along with other assets, if you take a look at Solana, Solana also sliding up a very nice candle, holding at almost 6%. We'll have Tim on from from Investing Bros talking about some of these key assets out there. So many of you guys are probably asset holders on many of the ones we'll talk about tonight. And if you want us to kind of take a look at a token, listen, drop it in over on the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can. We'll also be doing some Q&A throughout the show tonight. So I'll try to cover as many questions as we can as we're starting to near in on that. I want to wrap up here with Avalanche, which also had been on a very big downtrend right here on the daily. You can kind of see the movement here. I want to just show you guys where Avalanche has come from back here on September 27th to where it's trading right now, down almost 21%. So this is one of the tokens in the top 10 that has really started to take a little bit of a... We're going to be watching Avalanche very closely on the next few weeks as we start to see this play out. We are going to have John Wu coming on the show, who is the president of Ava Labs. He's been with us before. I would say gives us a little bit of insight how some of these projects within AVAX and Avalanche are rolling. And of course, they have a lot of news coming out around what they've been doing in their subnets or their L1s. So be on the lookout for that. We've got a lineup of people that are going to be coming on throughout the week on this election week. All sorts of people, so don't miss it. We've got Bluebird coming on, Van Eck coming on. It is going to be a star-studded week, so make sure and subscribe to the show if you're not already subscribed right now. And just to give you an example of our subscriber base, we are trying to pump it to around 720 would be a nice one. We are really moving here, and of course, you guys can be part of that, joining the channel, and it's very easy to subscribe. And if you do something in terms of giving yourself kind of a notification for these live streams like this, hit that little bell. Sometimes there's like the 3 options there. Hit the little bell to get notified when we go live, and that'll help you guys get started on following the channel if you're brand new to crypto here. All right, I want to go over to a few things here and get into this first kind of scenario here, because this is something that people have been looking at, and that is the performance of Bitcoin when you look at elections. And if you go all the way back to 2016, this of course is when Trump took the White House for the first time, and you see that 10% drop in Bitcoin, and maybe that was the little bit of a dip that we saw here recently. And immediately after that, just within a few weeks, crypto, of course, and Bitcoin skyrocket. Same thing scenario happened in 2020 when Biden took the House, and of course, right there at a 6.1% drop, and then an immediate upward trend. And then, of course, we saw what is happening right now, a little bit of a downward trend on Bitcoin, and 6.3%, even though that started to adjust down a little bit. And then, of course, that has started to move up. I think the question mark is tonight, the night that we'll start to see an upward trend around all of this. So definitely interesting chart here, because it does show a good historical thing. And I think that's the thing. A lot of people that have been following crypto are very versed in these cycles. And if you guys believe that, I'm just kind of curious, how many people truly believe we are in these 4-year cycles? Let me know in the comments. I always love to get the feedback of where you guys think some of these cycles in, because if you look at the performance of the ETFs over this last 6 months, absolutely on fire. You look all the way back to January of when we started to see kind of really a shift, I think, in crypto in general, not only from the ETF side of things, but remember, we've been doing a ton of DC coverage, which we will continue to do for you guys, covering regulatory alignment, because this is a big part of really this next phase in crypto. And part of that is going to be how these elections play out. So this is a very specific thing that I think is going to be interesting to a lot of crypto players in the market right there. Dominant party membership right now of early voters. This is per state, early voting, Democrats, Republicans, and others. You can kind of see Republicans starting to show up a little bit more. Interesting. And if you look right here, dominant voting method of early voters per state, right there on mail-in and in-person. This is interesting because this is really kind of the first time we've seen almost a 50-50 swap of mail-in and in-person voting starting to come alive. So this is all good. It means that there's a heavy expectation of the numbers. This could be the largest amount of votes ever cast for a U.S. president in the history. Obviously, Biden was the one that currently holds that record. but this could be a big factor going forward. Make sure and drop some questions in over on the side, and I will try to get to some of those. I know many of you guys are dropping in where some of your states are lining up, and I know you're probably watching two screens at once, and we thank you guys for that for sure. Some of the questions that people are bringing in right now, we've got Rock coming in with Nevada will take 4 days to cast a vote. That's interesting. This is something that we are seeing right now, is the number of days that a lot of these states are claiming that we could see before we actually see a resolve. Now remember, there's been, and we'll cover this a little later in one of the interviews, because I've got a lineup of questions I want to ask to some of these, some of these people that are coming in tonight, and that is, how does this line up in comparison to the state performance that we've seen in the past? And I think this is it's a very key thing, because there could be a few states that could be a surprise tonight. So we'll see. I think early voting, and of course some of the polls will be closing. Gosh, what time? We've got our 6 o'clock polls closing. We'll see a lot of polls closing at 8 p.m. And of course, we'll be covering in a lot of that. In between that, again, as I said, we will be covering a lot with some of our interviews here. Early voting. This is a big deal here, guys. Look at the numbers on mail-in and early in-person votes cast nationally. Let me kind of zoom in on that for you guys. 82 million right here. This is how many votes won the election last time. And here we are already with mail-in and early in-person votes cast nationally. So pretty big deal. You can kind of see the party lines right there, which are pretty much almost even right here, 41% Democrat, 39% Republican, registered Republicans. And then if you go down here and hit the battleground states, look at this. This is very interesting. And you can up within many of these battleground states. So a lot of these are going to be a big part of this. And I know many of you guys had some comments over on the side about Polymarket. I'll talk about that in a second. It is an platform. Kalshi is the U.S. approved betting market and prediction platform out there. Kalshi, of course, is essentially kind of the same thing. Polymarket, of course, runs on Ethereum. Kalshi is more of a traditional predictive betting site out there. But this is an interesting chart right here in terms of the amount of people that are in person and early voting. Definitely something to keep an eye on, because I think this is going to possibly be the critical thing that sways this election. Now, many people think it's going to be a certain demographic. I think it might be the fact that we're just drawing out more voters this year. Part of that has been in conjunction to shows like ours, constantly trying to get you guys to get out there and vote, but also Stand for Crypto has been out there. You've got these super PACs moving pretty effectively and aggressively into DC, which has been, I think, really opening the eyes to a lot of lawmakers. So that in itself is another reason I think we'll continue to see the activity continue to climb throughout the night. Further into this is showing the margin of victory by points. And you'll notice here that things have been getting a lot more narrow. It used to kind of have this broad range between these states and where we see some, and these are all the battleground states that are playing out. And where we are now with these battleground states, very, very narrow in terms of margin of victory. That's why tonight could be a closer race than a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives are thinking that it could. There's a lot of people out there right now saying that, Trump is going to do a landslide. I think a lot of people are looking at this data right now, especially in the last week, as to whether or not this will be a landslide and whether or not this is going to go really down to the wire. Now, there has been, some additional people that have kind of come out here recently. Rogan, of course, jumped out and, supported Trump now after his interview. We've seen a couple of others start to play out. Obviously, we know Elon's role within this. So and I understand why many of you probably think that would be the case. But on the other side, you have to look at the amount of celebrities that have been out there pro-Harris. So it is a big one. When you think about the voters, though, and I think the voters, when you really consider the scenarios that are playing out in everybody's mind of how are they going to go vote? What are they going to do on the day that they've either voted, and what is in their mind right now in terms of the most important? Well, one is the financial situation. and change in financial situation. If you look, and this is the swing states right here, so pretty big deal. Arizona holding in at 51% has saying that it's worsened. Florida, 47% saying it's worsened. So basically what you have here, guys, is an economy that has really put a lot of pressure on the American voter. And they're looking at the existing White House administration. They're looking at just the architecture of politics in general that have started to play in this. And I think maybe this is the time that we start to see a lot of change going forward. So this is a big deal. Right here on future financial situation, this is interesting because this is very pro and I think bullish for crypto in general. And that is, do you think your situation is going to improve? And swing states are mostly coming in with a little bit more of a rosy outlook. So do you guys think this way? Do you guys think we have a potential future? Do you feel like there's just been so much rhetoric over the last year and a half that it's drawn these markets down? We haven't seen clarity. We don't see a new administration with new life. Is that what you see that potentially could open up financial position? Comments down there, because I think this is one of those things that me personally, I believe that we are in a position right now that we have two candidates that could be good for crypto. Now, there are many ways that this could play out. Trump's scenario could play out one way with his statements. Harris looking at, maybe a strategy that has not been revealed just yet. That could play out for you guys. And I think this is all moving into what could be a win-win. Now, granted, I know a lot of people out there in the comments are probably saying maybe not so much if Trump doesn't win. We'll see. But I think there are a good thing when you look at money and you look at markets and you understand one thing, and that is, for the most part, government follows the money. And that, I think, is something that we're going to continue to see moving down. Now, part of this is going to boil down to a handful of troubled counties that are going to cause some of these key states to possibly slow their vote, which gets into the next scenario, and that is, what happens if we don't have a winner tonight? What happens if, Trump or Harris claim victory, but we just don't have a verification or a validation of the election? I think a lot of this is boiled down to Arizona. You've got a handful of counties in Arizona. You can kind of see Cochise County, Mojave, DeKalb in Georgia, Fulton County in Georgia, Gwinnett County, which we've shown and talked about before. But you've also got Nevada, and then of course Pennsylvania, which is a big one. Let me kind of zoom in on some of those cities and counties. For some of you guys watching right now, let me know if you're in one of these counties. I'm kind of curious. What are you guys seeing on the ground out there within these counties, and what have you been hearing from your local news? Because I think this is getting down to a very granular vote, as they often do. And I think that's going to be a factor, obviously, going in to the election as we get into closing some of our polls here pretty soon. Trust in Harris versus Trump on key issues. These are some things that are very intriguing. And I think most people, when you look at women's choice, you've got Harris pretty much the most trusted. But if you look further down in here into the war in Palestine, the economy, immigration, Trump is leaning in on this side, healthcare, election integrity, and of course the environment, leaning in on the Democratic side with Harris. And of course this gets into a lot of things. I think I would have to say that most likely you could look at inflation or possibly even the economy as the two sectors that most likely would affect crypto voters. Which obviously, if you're voting for a crypto pro candidate, you understand the idea of inflation and what that means, because inflation has so much of an impact on how you guys are actually creating a strategy around digital assets. I think that's a big factor going in too. So we are going to be getting into an interview here in a little bit, and I'll try to take a few questions before we get going here into the interview, and then we'll thank our sponsor. But I want to take a few questions right now. It says, James Honor says, many people in Polymark wants Trump to win, therefore betting against Kamala will show that Trump is winning, or higher number of people betting on Trump will show that, yeah, of course, that's how betting markets work. I think the key here with betting markets are that it creates a little bit of sentiment. And sentiment is a very key part of elections. Now, usually sentiment is going to give you early data on how an election might turn. And that's a key thing. But as it starts to narrow, and we'll just go back over to Polymarket. We've been streaming for about half an hour. Hasn't really moved much right now. Trump's still holding the 61. They'll update here in a little bit. I'll refresh my browser just to make sure. And we'll take a look at Trump. Let's see, is he holding 61.4? Yeah, it looks like he's still holding 61.4 right now. As we go into 6:20 Eastern time here on election night, Fox Mulder comes in and says, imagine not including crypto as a key issue. And I think this has been the challenge that Harris's campaign has had with the crypto audience. I would say she's had that with our audience and maybe with the country, possibly with the world, if you look at the amount of legislation that has been passed and also strategies that have pretty much been put in place by nation states. If you think about what's happening in Japan, what's happening in Singapore, what's happening in Dubai, also MiCA, which is the EU's regulatory framework. All of this is going in a direction that has kind of left the United States out. So is it possible that Harris could be just trying to gather more information? You've got Mark Cuban, of course, on her ear about digital assets. There are some key people within the Democratic side that are very pro digital assets. So this could still play into a good look for crypto as a whole. Here we go. Dr. J says, can Deaton beat Warren? This is a huge question mark tonight. We're going to be watching Massachusetts as that Senate race starts to resolve. And it's probably one of the most important ones, because if John Deaton were able to unseat Senator Warren, this could be one of the biggest pro-crypto things out there. So definitely be on the watch for Massachusetts. So you guys be giving me some insights too. If you guys are in Massachusetts, Boston area, let me know for sure. We'll take a look at Polymarket over on Deaton just to kind of see where it is. If I can go over to that. Hang on one second, we'll get to it. And into some more of our coverage tonight. Other questions, let's see here. I think we'll have a solid winner by, tomorrow, maybe 1 p.m. Eastern. Is that what you're thinking, tomorrow? So that could be the case. XRP versus Polygon election. That's a good one. I like that. Because you think about it, you see what's happening in the stablecoin side of things. Obviously, we've done a lot of coverage around what XRP is doing. And I think the thing with not only Polygon, when you say Polygon, you mean Polymarket, I'm assuming. So that's probably the kind of scenario that plays out into this for sure. I'm going to see if I can pull up the Massachusetts. Here we go. All right, so it's still 98% Democrat right now on Massachusetts, so not looking good for Deaton at least at this time. We'll see how this goes. We had John Deaton on the show not too long ago, and one thing he did raise in terms of concern was the amount of liberal voters there are in Massachusetts, and that is a big one. So hey, there's somebody voted for Deaton today. Good job. Justin Donald says, the thing is Harris might get rid of more old congressmen than Trump would. Okay, so that's an interesting statement there, Justin, and that is a good possibility for the Harris campaign. She could put herself in a position to where she could try to clean house. Now, there are a lot of new Congress people that will be entering DC this year. We'll be talking about that a little later with Cody Carbone and get into that, because part of one of the things I think you have to watch for is where are going to be the weak seats. And when I say weak seats, meaning the sense that if we're trying to get Fit 21 through the House and the Senate, we need more seats. We need more votes. And if we do see maybe some new blood coming into DC that are very pro-crypto, well, guess what? You have a potential winner there for sure. Elizabeth Warren is our biggest enemy. No doubt about it, guys. This is enemy number one. And I think when you look at the banking committee that she heads, part of the anti-crypto task force that's been in place, there may be one of her members, and that is Sherrod Brown, that may end up getting ousted. And of course, we'll show some stuff on that here in a little bit. But that could be a big factor going forward in terms of pulling a little bit of the strength away from Warren. Of course, that will stay, I think, on cue if in fact that she holds her seat as a senator. So a lot happening. All right, so we won't know for sure tonight. I think you're probably right, Fox, but I don't know, Fox Mulder, I don't know for sure that will be the case. Because if many people are looking at this as a potential sweep, then the likelihood of us seeing maybe some early surprises could start to set the tone for the night. And a lot of that, I think, is going to really start to change things for sure. All right, so now we'll get into that in a second. The guys are giving me some cues in here. We do have an interview coming up here in a few minutes, though, that I want to prep for. But one thing I do want to do, and that is thank one of our sponsors, and that is Tangem. If you guys are thinking about self-custody, and you should be right now, whether you're doing something on a centralized exchange or maybe you have other self-custody projects out there and other self-custody wallets, check out Tangem. I think you guys will like it. One reason is it's super easy to use. And if you're brand new to self-custody, it's probably the most, I won't say simple to get started, but it also has one of the most secure platforms out there for a self-custody wallet. It's a card. It works with an app that works both on Android and iOS. You guys can use our code. You get 10% off on that and start your self-custody. Even if you just do a little bit on self-custody, it will start to train you on how self-custody works, how DeFi works, how you can do swaps within the wallet itself. There's a lot there that I think a lot of you guys will really love. And most of you guys I know are very, very pro self-custody, which I totally agree on where that's going. Let's go back over to Polymarket real quick. All right, so Trump is up slightly, 1.9, and yeah, okay, no problem. Up 1.9, 60.5, and Harris is holding a 1.9 down slightly, 39.6. So a little bit of movement here on Polymarket. And again, we'll continue to watch this very closely. I think the key thing here is remember that if you guys remember when Pete Buttigieg was the potential for the vice president nomination, and Tim Walz was in the list, but not necessarily on the list as a potential candidate. And then he started climbing very quickly at the last few days, and then bam, he took over, and that was kind of the scenario that resolved in it. So were there some early indicators here that started to show how these elections line out? If we look at that, then maybe it could be the case. And if you think about going back to just the electoral votes, I mean, right now, you have to consider, I'm on Polymarket odds. Let me just make sure I can refresh that and make sure we've got fresh data. Yeah, okay. So right now, as it stands, Polymarket odds are holding at about 230 on the Republicans and around 226 on Democrats going in for sure. And we'll go over to that in a second. Hey, listen, I'm going to go to I want to get into our next interview first. And then I'm going to bring back some Stand With Crypto's data, which is very important because there are some wins that I do want to report for you guys. And then we may get some here during this interview here, but I want to cut to an interview and get Mark Moss on because it's going to be a good one. We'll break down a lot, I think, of his opinion on how these markets might fare. So stand by and we'll be right back with Mark Moss. All right, so I want to welcome in Mark. How's it going? Nice to see you again. We just had another call not too long ago, so great to have you back.
Yeah, Paul, always a pleasure being here with you. And man, what an exciting day to jump on and have a conversation. Yeah,
it's going to be a good one. I want to get into kind of your opinion around what's happening, obviously, with the election right now. We've seen the prediction market starting to move around, but also when you think about the past elections overall, this was something that was kind of brought to my attention right here. And that was when the winner is called. And of course, you know, Biden was several days after, 4 days. We also had the winner projected a day after when Trump took the office first, and then Barack Obama was on election day both days. You can kind of see all the way into Bush and even Clinton. So it doesn't look like we're going to get an announcement tonight, but the likelihood of going forward is probably pretty good that we could see something maybe this week. Do you feel like we'll get a winner this week, or what's your opinion?
Well, I mean, my opinion is that third world countries problem getting the count in on one single night and getting it in. Argentina just did it. Here we are, whatever, American exceptionalism, and we just can't seem to get that done. So that's my opinion about it. What do I think is going to happen? I mean, we saw some of the battleground states like Arizona, for example, said that they're not going to have the count done for 14 days.
Right.
So they said that. Now, what could potentially change? We see in Pennsylvania, which is probably the number one battleground state, they're reporting all types of irregularities from, the voting machines not working, not able to take ballots and scan them. Georgia is another battleground state. Now they're talking about bomb threats and things like that. So we could have all kinds of things that delay this. But back to sort of, let's say Arizona wants to drag this out for 14 days. We could see enough of the vote in other states where maybe Arizona becomes a little bit irrelevant potentially. Yeah. My hope is that this is settled as soon as possible and preferably in a day or two. But unfortunately, I think it's going to be dragged out for a while. That's my opinion. And the reason why I would say that is that it is not. We've always been able to count votes in one day, always been able to. Third world countries are able to do this. You don't need technology, and we can talk about putting the vote on the blockchain or whatever. You don't need technology. You could use pieces of paper and hash marks and crayons. The fact that we're not able to do it is intentional, and that's what bothers me, right? We've always been able to do it. Everyone can do it. We don't need technology to do it. Third world countries can do it. We did it. The fact that we're not is disturbing to me, and so it's probably going to drag out. I could see it dragging out a couple days easy.
When you look at the impact right now, Mark, on the finance side of things, obviously politics usually have a fairly significant role in how markets play out. I was looking at a tweet that you put out, a record $325 billion in cash. This is talking about Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. And you looked at the variation of what this means. I don't want to jump in too deep on it, but this is a lot of cash on the sidelines right now with Buffett. He has been liquidating a lot of significant assets, and that includes Bank of America and many others. Where do you think and what do you think Buffett is up to?
Yeah, so I just broke this down in a video yesterday. It hasn't been published yet, but what I'm thinking is a couple things. Number one, you have to look behind the scenes, peek behind the curtain, so to speak, and see exactly what's going on here. So he's been liquidating two big stocks, Bank of America, bank stocks, and Bank of America, and Apple. Now, what's interesting is just recently at a shareholder meeting a couple months ago, he was talking about how Apple is one of his favorite holdings. And now Buffett is a long-term investor. He says that if every investor would come into the market knowing they had 20 moves, they'd outperform everybody. His partner, Charlie Munger, said that the big money's made in the waiting, not the buying and selling. So he's a long-term investor. He's owned Coca-Cola for, 50, 60 years. So why is he saying a few months ago that Apple is even better than Coca-Cola, but he's selling? So I think we have to understand what he's selling and why. So number one, bank stocks. We know that banks right now today are in big trouble, meaning that they're sitting on the largest amount of unrealized losses in history, and by a large margin. And so we've already seen some banks collapse. 2023 saw a couple three banks collapse. We had another one just collapse a week ago. And so the banks are in big trouble. Now, I don't believe that us as depositors, our money in the bank is at risk. The government's going to make that whole. But the banks themselves, so for example, those banks that collapsed in 2023, everyone got their money. But if you owned the banks, it wasn't good for you. And so Buffett doesn't want to own banks in an environment where, one, they're sitting on the largest unrealized losses ever. But more importantly, number two, the outlook for them is extremely bad as an owner, not as a user, but as an owner. So for example, as the demand for U.S. Treasuries go down, the slack gets picked up by the commercial banks. The banks are the largest buyers of treasuries, so they're continuing money, and they're basically being forced to do that. So they're sort of like a utility. I made a video a couple years ago saying how the banks would become like a utility, meaning that they're used in this way just to get the debt, up and get the treasuries purchased. And so why would you want to own those stocks in this environment? Right. You wouldn't. So that's number one. Number two, back to Apple. He hinted at that shareholder meeting that one of the things that was on his concern was taxes. So we know that one candidate, Donald Trump, is saying he'll lower taxes. In his previous administration, he lowered taxes quite a bit, put some really good tax reform, in my opinion, through. Whereas Kamala Harris is saying that she wants to increase taxes, and not just increase taxes, but increase capital gains taxes by a huge margin, as well as even taxing. If you're somebody like Warren Buffett and you're considering selling hundreds of billions of stock and you're thinking about taxes, those implications, that change in unrealized losses or change in capital gains taxes is massive. So why wouldn't you sell in front of this protection, see what happens? And so those are the two things. The other thing I would just say real quickly is that I don't think it's a fire alarm in the markets. It's don't be in bank stocks. Number two, Warren Buffett's problems are not our problems. How do you place $325 billion? How do you do that? Now, for us, with your 10,000, your 100,000, your 10 million, it's easy to place 10 million. It's not easy to place 300 billion. And so I think it's important for people to understand those types of things. And then ultimately, we're sitting here at the precipice on the eve, the day of a massive election. And I want to remind people, this is not a personality contest. There are real issues on the line here, real issues. And so a lot of people want to see what's going to happen. What's going to happen because there's two drastic outcomes based off of who wins. And so why wouldn't you want to wait to get on the other side of that before you start placing that money?
Yeah, I think the volatility definitely is playing out within the markets for sure. And I would agree with you because I think there are two things. And if you look at traditional finance and some of the moves that have been made versus what we've seen, we've played a couple of clips from Tom Lee. He's been somewhat on point with where the market trend has gone over the last 6 months. And he's still very bullish, but he's also somewhat skeptical of how quickly the market can react based on, which outcome resolves tonight. So I think that's a big factor here. The other thing I want to look at is I want to get your opinion on whether you are even considering buying a Bitcoin or any digital asset going into this tonight, or possibly just waiting through and seeing what happens later in the week to maybe make a play on a digital asset. But I want to play a clip for you. This is CZ actually coming out of prison, and he's talking about where the market is right now. Listen in.
For this particular violation, which is a Banking Secrecy Act violation, we didn't register a financial company in the U.S. when we had U.S. users, and we failed to implement an adequate anti-money laundering program. For this particular violation, no one ever went to jail for a single violation. So I'm the only one who went to jail for this in U.S. history. And just 2 weeks ago, there was TD Bank got fined for like 1.8 billion, and no one was named. Just the company was fined 1.8 billion. But fair or not, that doesn't matter that much. The judge also said a bunch of really nice things about me in court. I found out actually 4 months is a really short sentence. So from that perspective, I was pretty lucky.
How do you see legislation today, and also where's it going? Just personal feelings. A week before I was sentenced, in middle April of this year, Elizabeth Warren declares war on crypto. This is like a week before my sentencing. And then the judge sentences me, and then I went to prison. And then by June, Donald Trump is pro-crypto. By end of June, both parties are pro-crypto. I'm still sitting in prison, like, what the hell happened? Should I be just waiting for two months? But that basically shows that the people want crypto. When the people want crypto, then the government has to respond. So I think it's moving in the right direction.
So Mark, with that being stated there, I mean, obviously CZ talking about the fact a lot has changed in a very short period of time. Some of this might be leaning into the political landscape. Do you think both parties are in on where crypto is going, especially around Bitcoin itself, or do you think this is really a Trump versus Harris scenario?
I would say in my opinion, and I study this pretty deeply, I would say there is nothing that indicates that the Harris campaign would be crypto friendly. There's nothing. There has been some very, very broad, vague lip service that if you're a dreamer looking for hopium, maybe you could think she was talking favorably about crypto, but there is nothing substantive or concrete, in my opinion. Trump has obviously come out and said, hey, what did he say at the Bitcoin conference? I want you to be free to buy your Bitcoins or your cryptos or whatever you want to do, right? And really, so when I was speaking at the Bitcoin conference, I said, really what's on the ballot is freedom. Trump says, hey, free to buy your cryptos or your Bitcoins, whatever you want. And we know the Biden-Harris campaign has been extremely aggressive towards that. And I would see them continue to do that. So to CZ's point, if he could have just waited, I think there's two drastic outcomes. And I think that regardless, even if Kamala's campaign and administration wins and does become or continue to be aggressive and towards cryptocurrency, it's not going to stop it. Right? We're talking about a global phenomenon. There's a saying that says a standing army is no match for a good idea whose time has come. And so this is a global commodity, a global phenomenon. And the U.S. could slow it down in the U.S. for some people. I do think that sort of, if we talk about Bitcoin, the range of the Bitcoin price at the end of the cycle could drastically be different. So, for example, with a Kamala win, maybe Bitcoin gets to 100,000, 120,000. On a Trump win, maybe it gets to 300,000. I think it could be that different, but we're still going to get to 100,000 either way. So Kamala's not going to be able to shut it down that much. But no, it is a massive difference in my opinion.
With that being the case right now, would you say that there are some possibilities of some trades or possibly acquiring some digital assets, maybe for people who are joining us tonight and they've just been looking at Bitcoin or they've been looking at Ethereum for the very first time? Are they, after this election is done, would you say it's safe to go into the water toward, the end of the year and make a trade?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I'm not a trader, Paul. I used to be. I just buy and hold at this point. I would say, so it depends on what your time frame is. So if you're trying to come up with a trade for a couple days or a week, I mean, I can't really help you that much. But what I could say is if you're willing to hold for a year, if you're willing to wait for hold for a year, I think, yes, buying Bitcoin anywhere around this price level, we're at about 69,000 right now. I think buying Bitcoin anywhere around this price level would be a really good move looking backwards a year from now. And that's because, like I said, even if Kamala wins, we're on pace to still get to the top of the range or the bottom of the range in the $100,000, $120,000 range. We saw every day we're seeing more corporations, more institutions allocating larger percentages to it. And so Kamala is not going to stop that at all. It's just how much higher could we go in a much more friendly environment?
Yeah, I want to kind of go down that path for a second. Part of that, of corporations starting to maybe elect to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, part of that is the FASB rules, which will eliminate toward the end of this year. That'll change things a little bit. You look at the balance of power right now in the Senate and potentially the House. This right now I'm showing on Polymarket. And it looks like, the Senate's going to go into the Republican camp, which could be pro-crypto. It's also possible, I still think, that the Democrats, so we could see both a House and a Senate in the Republican side, which could open us up for some positive regulation. Do you think that would make a difference even if Trump doesn't get in the White House?
I mean, it could. We could remain hopeful, right? The problem is that most of this stuff is being done by the administrative state, not the elected officials that we put there to make these decisions. And so most of the attacks have been coming through, again, the bureaucratic state, which is the SEC, right? The CFTC, those types of things. And so whether both House and Senate go red or not, it doesn't change those. What we'd have to see is the heads of either one. We have to see those institutions be neutered, shut down, which potentially the change in that Chevron deference that happened in the Supreme Court 6 months ago could start to change that. So that'd be positive there. Or two, we'd get rid of Gensler. I mean, Trump promised to get rid of Gensler. We get rid of Gensler and put somebody that much more friendly in place, like maybe elevate Hester Pierce to that level. If something like that were done, yes, 100%. But regardless if the House and the Senate go red, as long as those institutions stay hostile to crypto, which Gensler has been, then I don't expect a lot to change in that regard. Now, if Trump gets elected, he said he would change the leadership there. But if Kamala is there, we could get ready for this bombshell. We could potentially see Gensler going to the level of Janet Yellen's position. Yeah. Treasury Secretary. And we could probably see somebody equally, if not worse, take his position there.
Well, that is something that we've talked about a little bit on the show, and I would kind of agree with you. If we do see that, it goes back to what you even mentioned earlier, which is the Chevron deference scenario, basically bureaucratic overreach, which has been the problem for quite some time. However, at the same time, you look at Elizabeth Warren, it looks like we may not get her unseated in Massachusetts. That, of course, will continue the war on crypto, probably from her side. And remember, I would still say that Gensler is her lead general out there in terms of this war on crypto, as we continue to see Wells notices being played out. But at the same time, you've got a handful of politicians that are starting to fight back. I was interested in this one. This is a Republican, Lily Williams, and she's from New Hampshire. Did you see this clip? Yeah. Let me play this clip for those who haven't seen it, because it is phenomenal. Yeah. Take a look at this.
Maggie Goodlander has worked in all three branches of federal government and holding a senior advisory position in President Biden's White House. A self-described communism survivor, Tang Williams grew up in Maoist China. She worked as an attorney there before coming to the U.S. to study in Texas.
What's the fastest way to get people relief quickly?
People are feeling the pain of high prices right now here in New Hampshire. I will do everything in my power and fight with everything I've got to lower costs.
Go ahead, Lily.
Sorry, here you are again, Maggie. It's caused by federal government, but you don't have solutions. You're just repeating DNC talking points. Do you have independent thinking skill? Or you need to go to business school to study economics 101, who actually caused inflation? It's a federal government printing money. That's why people are buying other things rather than continue to use fiat money. They're buying gold, buying silver, buying crypto because they say US dollar is going down.
My opponent and I have very different views of what should be done to make life less hard for hardworking people in the state.
You are wealthy. You are worth $20 million to $30 million. How do you know about regular people suffering? Do you go shopping, go to Walmart, buy food? I talk to those people. And you pretend to be renter in Nashua a few months ago, move back to run for this open seat with millions of dollars from Washington, D.C. insiders. And the millions of dollars. I don't have money to run a TV ad. And you pretend you are poor, complain rent is so high. Go back to your $2 million home in Portsmouth.
You're focused on me. I am focused on the voters and on the issues that matter to them.
Your math cannot add up. And I'm very good with math. Maybe that's stereotype for aging Americans. Show me the path. Borrow money from China or print money to drive up inflation. We cannot afford to engage in endless wars. And your husband, Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, he should get fired.
My opponent is focused on me, and I would appreciate if we could stick to the issues and not personal attacks. But I'm focused on the issues.
The issue is your math does not add up.
Ms. Tang Williams, let her finish.
This is a real point of disagreement between the two of us.
Maggie is trained very well to not answer questions directly and repeat her party talking points and not offer solutions to the reality.
Again, my opponent is focused on me. I am focused on the voters and on actual solutions.
I know I'm the underdog in this race, but I trust the people to decide after tonight. I'm asking for your vote. I will represent you with pride and transparency.
That's time.
Thank you.
What's beautiful is this is a Chinese American that has had a chance to see the other side of the curtain and understands what's going on here in the United States. Do you think we would have more politicians that might enter into that frame?
Yeah, I mean, that was just such a beautiful takedown. And, she kept trying to deflect and said, you're talking about me. I'm trying to talk about America. And she was talking about the issues. And I think this is the big thing, that I see that I'm pretty disgruntled about in this election is that it's not a personality contest. There are real issues here, and they couldn't be more drastic, and they couldn't be more different. And so, I mean, she nailed it. I mean, talking about inflation. Kamala saying that inflation is a problem. The Biden administration did. I mean, he went on the Super Bowl and he was eating his ice cream cone and saying talking about shrinkflation and how he wants to crack down on corporations. Elizabeth Warren said she wanted to crack down on turkey people last Thanksgiving. And Kamala is doing the same thing. So it's not about Kamala. It's the administration, the Democrat Party. And they're saying that the problem with inflation is that these greedy businesses, so the goal for us would be to price restrict them. That's always worked well in history. Whereas she called it out perfectly. Lily did. She's like, no. Look, the reason why prices are going up is because you keep printing money. You're borrowing money. And so you can clearly see that one candidate understands it and one And this is a hot button for me right now. I hate to say this. I mean, I bleed red, white, and blue. Both my grandparents were World War II veterans. I was born into an Air Force family. My dad's a Vietnam vet. You can't have a constitutional republic without an educated, citizenship. You just can't. And you can't have people voting on situations that they don't have base understandings for, much less elected politicians. And so when you get these elected politicians that are career politicians who have never worked in the private sector, especially have never run a business in the private sector, they just don't understand. And, no knock on them, they don't understand, but like, you can't be making these types of decisions. You're going to go attack inflation, but you don't understand the problem. And that's what Lily was saying. Like, well, let's go back to economics 101 here. Like, you don't understand this. And it's a big problem, not just with the elected leaders, especially with them, but back to even the people doing the electing. When you don't understand these situations, you're just never going to get a good outcome here.
Well, I agree with you. I think a lot of people get the combination of democracy and what we truly have here in the United States, to your point, which is a constitutional republic. And I think the scenario you're getting at kind of leads into one thing, and that is, I guess the other question I want to ask you is, Mark, do you really think they don't get it, that these Democrats, Republicans, lifelong politicians, so to speak, do you think they don't get it, or they do get it and they're just electing to go the other route for many other reasons?
I mean, that's a very broad term to stereotype people, but I would say categorically to stereotype people, I would say they don't get it. They don't. Ayn Rand wrote about this in her book, Atlas Shrugged. She said, when you have to get permission to produce from men who produce nothing. And that's basically where we're at. Like, we have to get approval to operate a business, to create a product, to solve a problem in the marketplace, to generate income, to give jobs. We have to get permission from people who have never done that.
Yeah. And
so it's what she talked about. It's what we're seeing today. The majority of these politicians are career politicians, right? It used to be a public servant. And so, like, I should have gone and been successful in the private life and made enough money that I could now go become this public servant. But I would have taken that experience with me. As a successful person, now I could go do this public service. But the problem is today we have these people who have never done any of that, and they go in to be a career politician. It's not a public servant. You're a career politician. And that's a big difference there.
Yeah, I think you're dead on it. Hopefully we get more, I think, politicians like Lily, to where we start to break the mold here at least, and maybe get some people in there to a certain extent. I think some of this is starting to show up maybe in this election for the first time. The world is watching right now.
I put a tweet out a few days ago, and it was talking about Socrates and Plato and how they looked at what would be a democracy. And the example I put out was sort of like, imagine a crew electing a captain for a ship, but the crew has no basic understanding of navigation skills.
Yeah.
So how could they elect a good captain for the ship if they don't understand how to navigate? They don't understand what skills are even required to be the captain of the ship. Yeah. And so that's sort of what we're at. When you don't understand these basic things, how the branches of government work, you don't understand economics, inflation. When you don't understand, how could you elect somebody to navigate you through those waters?
Yeah, which is what really has been happening in our public school system, where it's been deflating kind of the knowledge base of just American citizens and kids, that
just last year in Baltimore, out of, I think it was 55 schools or 59 schools, not a single student was proficient in reading or math. In Chicago, I think it was like 65 schools. Not a single student was proficient in English or math. So if you're graduating without being proficient in math, how are you going to understand inflation?
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, the United States is kind of on the world stage right now. Obviously, with this election, everybody's looking at it. You've got Polymarket out there, which is kind of interesting, Polymarket built on an Ethereum app. But the point being is that we've got Polymarket starting to show some trends here. We've looked at all sorts of things, everything from, who's going to win Michigan, which we've seen some variations on a lot of these swing states right now. The swing state side of Polymarket, if you look at the overall versus the swing states, have you been watching any of these swing states? I know you're watching some of the ones we talked about earlier. I think Pennsylvania that everybody's kind of drawing into right now. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, definitely. Well, what's interesting, we talked about Arizona earlier. Right now, he's up 80% in Arizona on Polymarket, which is pretty big. Pennsylvania's up 58%. Pennsylvania is a very important state. It's got in the swing states, it has a lot of electoral votes, 19. But what we're seeing in Pennsylvania is pretty amazing. We have the Amish are coming out in massive forces to go vote, which is pretty interesting. We haven't really seen that before. The one thing when you go back and look at election trends as well is that, especially over the last couple with this whole new mail-in ballot thing, the Dems have been leading early. They vote early.
Right.
But if you're already behind going into election day, it doesn't look too good for the Blues. And so the Reds are coming out in force today. They're already ahead in pre-voting, right before the election day. So I think it looks pretty strong there. You know, Paul, you mentioned international markets for a minute. I was in Sydney, Australia a week ago. I was speaking at a conference there, a Bitcoin conference called G Code. And all the Australians there, they wanted to ask me about the election. Like, it was like the number one topic I was asked about more than any other topic. And I thought it was very interesting, you know, because I don't get asked that a lot at home. Like, nobody in the US seems to be that concerned about it, but everybody there, it was so important to them. And of course, I asked them why do they pay attention? Because I don't really understand Australian politics or UK politics or whatever. And they all felt that if this doesn't go to Trump in the US, there's no hope left for Australia. Like
Interesting.
If the U.S. goes down, what hope left is there in the world? And they really, at least for the people at this conference, it was a small sample size, you know, anecdotal, whatever you want to call it. But they really felt that. You mentioned that international, and you can see people all over the world are paying attention to this. But I would say. But yeah, so I would say it looks good. I see on Polymarket now Trump is up 61%. Kamala's up, or I mean, Trump's up on Kalshi 57%. When you look at you know, we have other ways to look at this today. And this is why Kamala's administration wants censorship so bad. When you look at other things, so for example, you saw the rally. So I saw a rally of Kamala last night, and where she went onto this glitch where she just kept saying, go out and vote over and over and over and over. And there was like 1,000 people there, or like 2,000 people. Whereas Trump is like packing out, I think yesterday packed out 4 stadiums in a row, back to back to back. So you can see that, which, you know, some of the things that were sort of conspiratorial was when he got shot, then they started saying, Secret Service said, you can't have these big rallies anymore. And so they're like trying to control that. But now you can see things like Joe Rogan, right? So like, for example, Kamala chose the podcast she wanted to go on to, and it got 770,000 views, 700,000. And Trump's are getting 40 million views. And so you can see that. And then you can see on Twitter as well, you know, and some would argue that Twitter's a red, conservative, right-wing outlet. I don't think so. Twitter has been the public square. It's been the public square for a long time. It was always more, seemingly more blue than it was red before. Now all of a sudden it's red. I don't think so. I think it's a pretty good ecosystem for the U.S. And so I think we have other ways to look at this as well. And those are pretty glaring to me.
Well, you're right. I mean, you've got Elon Musk obviously coming out with Trump, campaigning in Pennsylvania pretty heavily. Rogan came out today, has endorsed Trump, which was a huge endorsement. He announced it last night, I think, at one of his last rallies. So to your point, yes, there's a lot of people that are business people or have built something that are starting to understand where this is going. And what we've seen, you know, from both the left and the right, I think is, extent, I think with Trump, he's been able to kind of get industry behind him, maybe for the first time. The left, I would say right now, it's mostly been the celebrities, which is a different kind of support. And, you know, I think this is the balance that we're faced here in the United States with right now. I want to go back and visit this.
Just to that comment real quick, you said getting business support, right? Like, if you think about it, for the last several elections at least, most of businesses, big business, Fortune 500 specifically,
they've been, you know, on the left.
Yeah, especially Silicon Valley have been heavy left. And you see them all coming over now. And really, I mean, Trump was a lifelong Democrat. RFK's family is the Democrat Party. Elon, lifelong. And so Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat politician. So all of the Democrats have basically gone over to the Republican Party. So I hate to even think of it like Republican Democrat anymore. You just have to kind of think of it as sides. So everyone's come over, but the support from Silicon Valley coming over to the Trump campaign has been enormous. And I think the reason why, back to, again, as I said, this is not a personality contest. There's real issues. And these business owners understand, especially like a Joe Rogan and a lot of these social media people, the amount of censorship that's going to happen under a Kamala administration is going to be so heavy that it's going to be extremely difficult for these people. And so I think that has that massive sense of urgency.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think to your point is that you've got, it isn't necessarily Republican, Democrat anymore. I do agree, because what we have seen is that what used to be a moderate Democrat is now a Republican. It's just, you've moved the line into where a Republican begins and ends. So it is interesting. We're running short on time here, Mark, but I do want to hit you up before we let you go. And that is talking about the Fed rate cuts. We've got a potential Fed rate cut coming at us right now, 2 days away. With Chair Powell, he's going to be coming back in, possibly a quarter basis points. Do you like a quarter basis points for the next 2 months? And what's your outlook for 2025?
Wow. Happening right after the election, it's like a lot of people were thinking they were trying to lower the rates and stoke the markets before the election to keep the current administration in place. This one happening after the election gets us sort of over that hump. I'm kind of feeling maybe a pause right now. I'm kind of feeling maybe a pause. We have inflation really starting to kind of get cooked back up again right now. However, the last revised job reports numbers were just absolutely catastrophic. Yeah. Not only did they revise the jobs down from the last one, but the new report they were expecting 100,000 jobs. They got like 12,000, I think it was, or something. Yeah. So the labor markets are really bad. So, maybe we stick with the 0.25. I think maybe that makes sense. Maybe I'll put my hat there in the ring, but I like to typically think about a little bit longer term. So to the next part of the question, which was what happens through 2025, I think the bigger thing at play isn't so much about inflation. Partly the job market, yes, but the big thing is about the government debt. Yeah. And they have to lower those interest rates to get that government debt back down. And they're going to have to figure out what's happening on the long end of the bond curve as well. And so I think that we'll see rates come back down, yes, through the end of next year, mostly because of the government debt that we have and trying to manage the interest payments on that. Yeah, for sure. I want to get your opinion before we let you go tonight. And that is, do you feel like Trump is going to win this, or do you think this is going to be really, really close at the end? Man, I hate to give this wishy-washy answer. I would say I think Trump wins. But so I'll put that down. I think Trump wins. But here's what bothers me is I think that Trump actually wins in a massive landslide, and all the data supports that as of right now. When you look at the early voting that's coming in, one, I already mentioned the Joe Rogans and what we can see there, the rallies. But what the early voting that we see, I mean, he's just going to win in a landslide. The problem that I have is the Democrats will not let him take power. They won't let him win. And they've come out and said so. Rep Raskin came out and said that he'll do everything to not let Trump take office. He won't certify it. Raskin and Einhorn have created this new group to save democracy that's working to prevent Trump. So we know that they will do anything and everything to prevent that from happening. And I think a lot of the funny business we see in the polls are part of that. We can see in some of the blue cities like Portland, et cetera, they're already like putting plywood up and boarding up the windows. And so while I think realistically, based off of all the factors I've said, plus the early voting, Trump will win in a landslide. Does he actually get certified to win? That's where I'm afraid, Paul. Yeah, well, that's the piece that's what could be a little bit more concerning, I think, for the United States. Well, really I think for the entire globe. The shame on all this, and going back to getting the votes counted, the shame on this is, I feel, and I think most Americans would probably say the same. Most of us could just get, whoever won, if we believed it was free and fair. Yeah. If that's who won, then that's who won, and we'll accept it. But it's the fact that they're not requiring voter ID. It's the fact that they're stuffing ballots in the boxes. It's the fact that there's all these irregular. That's what the problem is. So anyway, I think Trump wins in a landslide. Whether he takes office or not, that's a different question.
All right, excellent. Mark, it's been good having you guys. Check out his channel right there, Mark Moss, over on YouTube. And of course, subscribe there. You can just go to One Mark Moss and you will catch him. So thanks again for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. Always a pleasure.
That was with Mark, and we'll be getting into it today. I know a lot of you guys were talking about Lily Williams, and this is her. So you guys can jump over. She is a Republican over from the New Hampshire Region 2, or I guess that's what they call it. Obviously very supportive of crypto. So a big one. I want to tell the guys over at the on the desk. Can you guys, I'm catching a little bit of feedback there. Anyway, looks like it's gone. All right. So anyway, Lily Williams, if you guys want to, what a great clip that was. We do have some breaking news right now. And if you go over to Stand With Crypto right now, this is going to give you a rundown on some of the new, now it looks like Indiana has 7 pro-crypto politicians elected. We've got 4 in Kentucky that are pro, and then 1 in Virginia. So this is coming in. Let me kind of take a look. Here's the 6 pro candidates that have been elected so far. This will continue to line up. So many of these you guys will recognize. So we've got Kentucky, Indiana, Virginia, James Comer coming back in. So that's good. Ben Klein, Andy Barr, Erin Houchen is also, she's a rep in Indiana. Some of these, of course, are all representatives there in the House Reps. So again, every seat counts as we go further into us. And of course, one that you need to be aware of is we had a couple of anti-crypto candidates right there, guys. So come on, we're gonna have to educate these people. So Sheila, you are welcome to come in on our show anytime. And Andre, come on in our show. We'll help educate you, give you some insights on what's happening with crypto, maybe turn that F into an A. Because I think sometimes people just don't know. They need to get an awareness underneath them. So if you guys are out there in Florida and Indiana, let's go ahead and start trying to get a hold of your lawmakers and, let them know what's up. This is how it all comes together. Now, there's a lot happening. I want to go over to 270 real quick. And just as a reminder, Coinbase is our sponsor tonight. You guys check it out. It's a great place to, of course, get the future of money is here. And of course, when you guys think about going into centralized exchanges, maybe Coinbase is the place for you. Just use our link. We always leave it in the comments down there. I want to go to 270 to win. And I'm still on the 2020. Let me move into, let's go and take a look at the Kalshi odds right now. Still holding at 262 right now on the Kalshi odds. If you go on down and take a look at Polymarket odds, holding at 287 right now after we did see a win right now. So we are getting first polls coming out of Georgia and Virginia. Harris is up right now in Georgia on the first polls coming out. So be on the lookout for that one. Harris is up by a large margin, 86 to 12%. So that's something to kind of keep a close eye on. And I think right now the key here is going to be some big states. Pennsylvania, a huge state. We also, I think we've got to look at Wisconsin and Michigan Michigan starting to slant a little bit more leaning Democratic. Again, remember, this is not the actual data. This is the predictive markets map that we're looking at when we go to Polymarket. And this is the 270 map, which is the actual data, I meant to say actual data here. But when we go to Polymarket, that's the predictive market. So sometimes those are a little different. If you go back over here to Polymarket, we'll go to the 24 consensus. This is where we're holding right now. So a lot of states still yet to be in there for sure at 230 on the Republicans. A lot of unassigned in terms of many of these states. I think obviously Texas, I think will pull in safe tonight. Don't forget to put some questions in over on the side. and subscribe. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel right now. Take a time, step back, hit the subscribe button. And one reason is that's going to help other people start to learn about crypto, maybe for the very first time. And this is part of the education process for anybody kind of coming into crypto for sure. So right now, it looks like we're back up to 11 wins now over on Stand with Crypto. Man, you could just watch this all night on Stand with Crypto. Let me kind of go back and see how that is. Let me repopulate that and see if we are up to 11. Not quite. I saw 11 wins. Well, maybe we'll check back on that one and take a look on where those wins are coming. I want to go to some regulation data here, which is very important of where things are going. I'll zoom in up here. This is tracking the SEC's anti-crypto crusade. And if you're brand new to crypto, and I think one of the things you got to be concerned about is when you look at the scenario coming in on these things, is that one thing that will play into this is whether or not we continue to get pressure from the SEC. And I think that's the big deal as you start to look at this. Look at the amount of defense litigation that was spent. This is November 1st updated. All right, we are talking about massive amounts of money. This is self-reported by the Blockchain Association, which this report was a good report by them. Further into the SEC enforcement actions brought against the digital asset industry under Chair Gensler, 104 companies and entities out there brought into this. And then, of course, 2-1, voters prefer clearer rules. This is pretty clear, I think, in the situation where we've got to get clear rules on this. And I think the thing, when you look at regulatory alignment right now, the situation has to get and be done out of Congress. And that's why this election is so critical. I just got notes from the team. It looks like there's up to 30 plus wins right now on pro crypto candidates. So again, this is very, very positive for the night, because remember, regardless of what president is in there, the key here is that Congress is going to make a lot of these decisions. Now, yes, a president can come in and veto things like what we saw with SAB 121, where Biden kind of came in last minute. But I don't know that either candidate would be put in that position, especially with a lot of these new people coming into the administration that could start to change for 2 and 3. 2/3 of voters now agree that the SEC should wait for clear guidelines from Congress. That's pretty much a no-brainer, I think, right now, which is insane. And then 18% of crypto voters make up the electoral and are even more winnable than other voters on issues concerning an overreaching SEC. And this, we've talked about this for quite some time, is that single issue voters are a big, big factor in this election. Maybe this is the one election where crypto truly will make a difference tonight. So a lot happening out there, guys. I've got to go to another clip here. I want to show some of this right here, because this is the report that you guys can go download from the Blockchain Association, and this is the from the Harris Public Policy and Research team. So we get a little bit of alignment here within it. There's a few points I want to get on here, and some of this you saw in the kind of the infograph there that we showed there, but I want to get into some of this data right here. And this is voters and crypto voters alike favor the government establishing clear rules, frameworks for over-focusing on the enforcement at a 2-1 rate. And I think that's the key here. And you look at this compared to what we've seen with both Republicans and Democrats, this is a huge opportunity, I think, for crypto to get back in the crosshairs of Congress. Look at some of these data points right here. They're necessary to protect investors and maintain, this is about the SEC, market integrity. All voters do believe that. I would agree that to a certain extent. And even crypto voters believe that. They're also overly aggressive and stifle innovation in the digital asset space. Not everybody believes that, and I think that's really just a situation that not everybody completely understands what digital assets are. And if they started investing in them like traditional finance, they probably change their minds very quickly. So I think everybody knows that. 73% of crypto voters obviously are. They're also inconsistent, creating confusion in the industry. I think everybody kind of agrees with that. They are inconsistent and have continued to show that. And even some of the clips that we've played for you guys, and I'm going to play a couple of clips for you guys actually that will have both Harris and Trump when they first mentioned crypto for the very first time. But if you remember some of the clips that we've played throughout this year of Hester Peirce. Hester Peirce was and has been a very big proponent of digital assets, but more important, she's been a little bit of a pushback and a thorn in Gary Gensler's side. And I think that shows a lot here in terms of what we're seeing around creating confusion and trying to get back to a point where they're not creating confusion, meaning the SEC. It's an effective approach to regulating the industry, and that could be the case, but I think the big one is right here. They should wait until Congress provides a clear guideline on regulation. 66% and 78% on crypto voters right there. So pretty big. One thing that did surprise me is look at this right here. And this is most voters agree with the SEC focused on big tech and banking, and that they should face equal 40% or more regulatory scrutiny. 10 points more on big tech, 2 points more for net and banking. So that in itself, crypto is still in the driver's seat, I believe, as we go forward. Don't forget, guys, we will take some Q&A. We've done one Q&A session for you guys. We'll do some more. I do have a trade sector coming up. We're going to be doing some trading for it, not live trading, but taking a look at some of the charts. So if you have a token that's one of the major tokens that you want us to take a look at, make sure and jump into that. By the way, I do want to go to our poll real quick. We'll have several polls for you tonight. And let's go to our first audience poll and take a look. How are you feeling about the election tonight? Awesome. Man, you guys are optimistic out there. This is great. 29% are neutral, so you could fall either way. So the good thing is there's still a very good high side to this for sure. One thing that surprised me was this right here. Voters agree it's time to move on regulating space and believe the U.S. is behind 36%. Totally agree. No party owns digital assets or cryptocurrency as an election issue. This surprised me on crypto voters, almost dead center here on both Republicans and Democrats. And if you think about this, let's, Mark mentioned this earlier in the interview, it's not a popularity contest. I do believe these are issues that are being addressed. But if you go back and look at a lot of our videos, I would invite you guys, if you're brand new to our channel, go back and look at our DC coverage. Because we've done, probably 50 videos on DC regulation. A lot of what has aligned as the players in the industry, but also as lawmakers. And I think when you go back and look at some of those videos, you'll probably start to see a bipartisan approach. And I think that's what this chart represents here for crypto voters at 44% and 43%, meaning that both sides think that digital assets is a key factor going forward. And of course, getting the SEC to get in this is only going to do one thing, and that is get in and get Gensler out. That's what it boils down to. Get in and get Gensler out at the end of the day. We're going to take a look at some more live results. I want to go back over to Stan with Crypto. All right, so Stan with Crypto is starting to paint out a lot more. 7 pro crypto politicians now elected in Georgia. Florida has 10 pro crypto politicians, so kudos to my state. 3 in South Carolina coming in, and it looks like 3 in Virginia. 5 pro crypto politicians in Kentucky, and 7. Listen, guys, we need hundreds of these politicians in the House and in the Senate to be able to start to actually make movement. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to continue to go up. 34 is our total number right now, but we are picking up some anti-crypto candidates, and I want to point them out. Let's go down, and because this is not about pointing fingers at anybody. This is about helping others get in and understand this is what you need to learn about digital assets, guys. This is what you need to learn. And right there they are. So you've got Vermont, Indiana, a rep in Florida, a rep in South Carolina with Jim Claiborne. Some of these may not be salvageable, so we may be fighting them for a while. But, Jerry, I don't know about that. He's a Virginia rep. You've got Maxwell coming in. And, of course, Debbie Wasserman Schultz right here in Florida, which this is one I'm working on specifically, trying to shift her opinion toward crypto. And it is a hard one because of their ties to the banking industry. So this is kind of the things that we are fighting. And just be aware, guys, this is something that all of you can get out there and do. Don't put it on someone else. Put it on yourself to go out and start talking to your lawmakers. Remember, the crypto industry has got a big fight ahead of it, whether it is Trump that wins or Harris that wins. The fight is going to continue in DC, and it's going to continue in Congress. So your voice matters. Don't just vote and then be done. You got to get out there and continue to send those emails, continue to make those phone calls and supporting these people. I think they will start to understand that's why they have been put in office for sure. Let's see, we've got some other stuff coming up. I want to go to a clip here because this is crypto voter data. And this is a clip from CBS that breaks it down. And I think this is important to really understand the scope of where the industry is and the voters are. Take a look.
Crypto investors. 1 in 5 Americans owns cryptocurrency. And for the first time, those people could sway who becomes president.
Right. So on the anywhere between 7 and 21% of Americans have invested in crypto. So on the low end, that's 18 million people. On the high end, that's 50 million people, right? So any way you slice it, that's a lot. Of those, close to 75% said they're going to consider a presidential candidate's stance when voting. So look, this could really play a big role in battleground states. For example, the Stand with Crypto PAC is sending up what they're calling crypto advocates. In Arizona and Georgia, they already have more than 30,000 advocates. That's way more than the number of votes that Biden won in those states by. And because of those potential voters, right, the crypto money is flooding in like we have never seen before. The pro-crypto PAC Fairshake, it's raised over $200 million this cycle. That's one of the top PACs in terms of funds raised. So look, the takeaway here is if crypto owners are single issue voters, they could actually play a role in picking the next president.
Wow. I don't understand crypto at all. I at one point owned some crypto stock, and I couldn't tell why it was going up or down, and it made me feel all kinds of ads.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this anymore, so I'm out. Everybody you know has gotten rich off of crypto except for me.
One day, Tony.
No one I know so far, Tony, but people are out there. People are really doing this, so it's a fair issue to talk about.
Tony, you got to come to our channel. That's all I'm going to say. You got to come to our channel. We'll get you into some crypto stocks. We'll help you out in the sense of understanding what's going on out there in the markets out there, for sure. $100 billion election economy is now in full swing. And there's a lot here to break down because this, to me, is a key factor in why we're seeing exactly what they were just talking about, and that is this huge shift into mainstream. And when I say mainstream, whether it's mainstream investors, mainstream media, we've continued to talk about this with the Bloomberg guys, which, by the way, we'll be having Bloomberg, Van Eck. We've got Yatsu coming on the show I think it's this week. But it is a huge lineup coming up in just the next few days. So if you're not subscribed, guys, take a time, step away, hit that subscribe button right now, and get subscribed to the show because we've got a ton of lineups here. All right, a couple of charts I want to hit in on. Projected federal spending for elections. Look at this right now in terms of total dollars going in on federal elections right now for 2024, clearly outpacing everything except the 2020 election, at least when you look on one side of it in terms of total dollars in 2024 versus the nominal dollars. But this is probably going to outpace. Man, that was a big deal to go to 18 billion. That's crazy numbers. Further in, how are candidates raising money? This is another factor that I think is playing into it. And part of this has been because of the explosion that we've continued to see in these PACs. And this is something that has happened even here in the crypto side of things. And I'm going to be talking about this very issue with Cody here in a bit. So you guys stick around for that interview because we're going to be doing that a little later. I think, what time do we have Cody coming in? I think a little later in the show. But we will be doing a live trading analysis for you guys, taking a look at some charts, some of the key charts going into this, and tonight give you guys kind of a heads up on where Bitcoin is holding, how Ethereum is doing, and of course we'll take a look at some of the other altcoins. And we should be doing that here pretty soon. It looks like we're about just a few minutes away from the hour of getting in. All right, so here's some other things I want to hit on, and this is ad spending. Look at the accelerated ad spending that is happening right here. Let me kind of zoom in on this for you guys so you can see it a little bit better. But look at this massive growth here. Now, the one thing, which may be good for us, but we don't really take political ads, is see that little red bar? Notice how it barely existed back here in 2020, but here as we slide through to 2029, influencer advertising, I wouldn't call us an influencer though. I would put us more into just crypto media. Search advertising though, a big block continuing to be a factor. I haven't seen AI really played out into this. I'm assuming that will get into search, probably get qualified as search, maybe. And of course, I still think audio advertising, which is podcasting, let's just say it, podcasting is going to be a big part of that. I think that's a bit surprising that we haven't seen more of, meaning more money coming into it. Further into the report, donation across political parties by sectors. So you can kind of see right here, there's a few points I want to hit on. Business, but right now, labor is a big part of this, especially on the Democrat side. You look at healthcare, moving in on more of a split, finance, construction, agribusiness, etc. But communication, electronics, I mean, the spending is pretty even in terms of lobbies that are holding this. But finance and real estate, not necessarily pushing that much right now, which is, I think, where we would probably see this both on Dems and Republicans. Further into this, what do we got here? This is the 10 corporate campaign funders for the 2024 election. And this is Coinbase right there at the top. And you see Ripple, of course, coming in as well. Koch Industries, Jump Crypto, we know what that is. This is all in the Fair Shake pack, which is a big one. And of course, then you start to see the Center Leadership Fund start to take over there. And of course, you see some of that. So I think this is going to continue. We're going to see a lot more of this, especially pacing into these next elections. And remember that there's always those midterms that will be happening in 2026 that are going to be very key, because this will start to give us at least an alignment on how a lot of these potential crypto regulations are going to get going. And of course, right there, boom, media spending in 2024. Broadcast has been the brunt of it. Digital really climbing, but radio on the slide, as is satellite. So digital, that is podcasting, YouTube, social media. We could see this move into possibly the number 2 or the number 3 slot very soon. So again, big news for what's happening out there in the traditional fronts. Spending by state, I don't know if it's that big a deal, but the one that is most important, I'll zoom in real tightly here, is Pennsylvania. Look at that, $800 million being spent in Pennsylvania, mainly because this is a major swing state tonight as we start to take a look at Pennsylvania coming in. We are going to try to get to some questions, make sure and drop some over there, and we'll try to fill up a handful before we get into having Tim come on here from Investing Bros, and we'll take a look. I want to take a few questions, and then we'll take a few probably after Tim. But anyway, what's that? Okay. So we got Solana going to explode if Trump wins. I would agree with that on Too Short. The other thing with Solana, of course, the other tokens that may come out of this is Avalanche. You may see some movements on SWI. It's very possible we could see some stuff on IMX. I mean, there's a handful that could play into a pro crypto side of things. Block New Media, if you think Congress can agree on crypto, you a fool. Okay, I'm not a fool. But I don't think they can agree on it. That's the idea. We just think that there's enough of the ones that do agree that we can get something passed. And I think that will happen. Here we go. Intrinsynergy. Where do you guys come up with these names? These are fantastic names. You bought all the dips. See, there's a guy. He's buying the dips. Somebody tell me what data from Polymarket instead of real-time poll. It's already 3. Okay. Well, understanding Polymarket and real-time polls. When you go over to 270, if you're tracking it over there, you guys can get into the consensus polls, the basic polls that like a CNN is watching or a Fox News, and then you can take a look at the predictive markets. And there's a way to kind of channel in between those and repaint those charts. So that's how we're doing it. Why would you go against crypto unless you're uneducated? I think a lot of people are starting to realize the future of where technology is going and what blockchain really means. And I think that's the challenge that most people have, is just they think blockchain is complicated. And it is, but think about this if you were in, the early 2000s trying to understand what the internet was going to be, or if you were in 2007 trying to figure out social media. It's the early stage. Some time, for sure. All right, so let's get our next guest on, and that, of course, is my man Tim, coming in from Investing Bros. How are you, Tim?
What's going on, Paul? How you doing?
Hey, man, we've going live here for hours, it feels like.
Yeah.
But I know you're coming in to kind of bail me out a little bit here, and that's going to be on some charts. And you know how live streams work, right? You know how
absolutely
the crazy live streams. Well, tonight
Listen,
is a big
we tell people all the time, you got to have your hydration, Paul. If you're going to be talking long,
hydrate, baby.
Get your water ready. You're going to make some key mistakes tonight if you're not hydrating.
That's for sure. Hey, Tim, let's just jump into the charts. I want to kind of get a first peek at Bitcoin. And, for the night, I don't know that a lot of people might be looking at trying to make a trade in it, but maybe a big jump in Bitcoin right now. What do you think we're going to see over the next few days as we roll this election out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to be breaking any ice here. I think a Donald Trump election, if that happens, it seems like the most likely outcome, but that's going to be massively bullish. I think there's a lot of people who bought as those poly markets were climbing here weeks ago. Then earlier this week, those poly market levels started to kind of get closer together. Well, what happened to Bitcoin? Bitcoin decided to come back down. Now, as it's looking at those poly market levels are going back up, and we're hearing report after report that polls are just looking really good right now, I'd say, for Donald Trump. I think that's a part of what we're even seeing here over the last couple of hours, or pretty much today. Yep. I mean, we're rallying today. I think there's some confidence. What does that say? It says that the markets really want Donald Trump. I'm a believer that we still have a bull market under Kamala if, let's say, Kamala wins. But that's where I think you could expect a small pullback before the rally begins. And that's what kind of take us into the charts here. We've been kind of tracking this on our channel. After we touched almost all-time high, right? We fell about $200 short of all-time high back here on October 29th. We started to pull back, and there was two zones we told our community to keep an eye on. There was going to be some support here around 69.7, give or take. Sure enough, we bounced. We had a nice pull back up to 71.6. But we told our audience, hey, keep an eye on some lower levels like 65, 66,000. We got close with a wick here just, I think this is yesterday. Yeah, yesterday we came down to about 66.7. And some people are going to say maybe that was good enough, but I'm going to show you why I believe if a Donald Trump presidency happens, this price goes to the upside. If Kamala wins, this box right here is going to be interesting to keep an eye on if you're looking for another buy order. There's a big order block from Luxalgo right now, 42%. If I move this blue box out of the way, 42% of the liquidations on this 4-hour chart of these order blocks are coming in at that price level, meaning there is a whole lot of people who have put in buy orders here. There's a lot of people in short positions who have said, I want to take profit right here just below 66,000, and just not a lot of people saying that they want to exit and get bearish here. So that's kind of going to be in my opinion, going to be a very strong level of support if we were to go down that far. Another reason I think that if I look at a liquidations chart here as well, you could go a little lower than that. Actually, this kind of updating today, we got a good little chunk of liquidations, meaning longs with this being their liquidity level down here around 65.4. And when you look at this from a macro perspective, let's go out to the daily chart, a pullback to that level, pulling back to this blue line, you could make an argument. I have two resistance levels drawn here, Paul. The red one that a lot of people are kind of using, but if you don't take into account these wicks up here and you more pay attention to the wicks of April 8th and then especially this wick here of September 27th, this blue line has actually been used as support already back in October. And again, all these levels kind of coming down here towards 65 would show that we could bounce off that trend once again. Either way you cut it up, it's still bullish. It's still a retesting of a former resistance level. I'm not a believer. I think there's people out there kind of spreading some thoughts that Bitcoin, if Kamala wins, could fall, to lows we haven't seen in months, meaning below 48,000. I'm not in that world. I think it's more she just shakes up this bullish trend that we're in, pulls us back down to a strong level of support, and then we take off. Would you look at that, Paul? 70,000, almost 800. I think when I came up here, we were just crossing into the $70,000 range. So right now, if you were to go to a small time frame, let's go to 5 minute. Look at those bullish candles here on the 5 minute chart. We're definitely picking up some steam. The volume is picking up, right? We're not as high as some of these resistance volumes, but what's different about this one is we're picking up volume and those candles keep building. There's two ways to read volume. Volume can either tell us when the market wants to change directions, or it confirms a trend. In this case, with those big histograms on the volume matching the big candles on the bullish action, this is a sign that people are buying in bulk and there's just not a whole heck of a lot of resistance to stop us. I got to imagine that means that there's, people right now seeing something that's making them bullish about Donald Trump. If Donald Trump wins, I don't know when we find out when he wins. I don't know if we find out early tomorrow morning, maybe tomorrow, sometime midday. I think it could take a couple of days. I think within minutes, maybe a full hour, but minutes after that announcement, new all-time highs are getting hit. We're going up above 73.8. We're going to 74 and higher. But that's what we're kind of watching right now. Donald Trump, new all-time highs coming. You want to be ahead of that. If Kamala wins, you might be able to buy a dip at $66,000 or $65,000, depending on how that goes.
Well, I think the situation right now, which we've got some news coming in, looks like we have 23 electoral votes for Trump right now, and 3 for Harris. So polls are starting to close. We are starting to see some data come in. I want to jump over to a tweet because I have a question for you. And this was kind of talking about Carson Research, the S&P 500. They gained an average of 15% the year after 9 of the last 10 elections. So markets are bullish after the election. Here's my question for you is, would you play Bitcoin, Ethereum, some of the major assets rolling into the end of the year? Or would you say, okay, if I am going to take a major trade, would I look at something maybe after the first of the year? What would be your timing here?
If you look at crypto as a whole, you look at the Bitcoin chart, you look at the total chart, which is all of cryptocurrency all put together. We've seen now a 2012 election. Obama wins over, what was that? It was Mitt Romney. We go parabolic afterwards. You see the 2016 Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, it goes up. 2020. I remember 2020, and there was that rumbling. I wasn't necessarily a crypto, fiasco. I wasn't really into it that much, but I remember from my friends who were, they were saying like, oh yeah, if Joe Biden wins, we might have, after COVID and everything else, we're gonna have a rough winter with crypto. And then it just shot up. Yep. And so there's a level of, while I think the elections are very important, we're also right on track to continue to pump in the 4-year cycle. And if which I think at the moment, I don't know if it ends. I don't know if we stop at the 4-year cycle, but right now, this is the time where Bitcoin begins to surge and Bitcoin dominance increases. In fact, I know I've said this on your channel before, Paul. Haven't been back on since it happened, but check out our prediction we made 2 years ago. We said that during this bull market, Bitcoin dominance would eclipse, if I zoom out here, 60% dominance. Well, more in the last couple of days, I've actually now predicted with how we're surging here, we obviously surpassed 60% easily. We're probably going to see Bitcoin get up closer to 62 to potentially over 63% dominance. Why? Because it's Bitcoin season. But what happens is, and it's not loading a bunch of my other charts here. It's taking a while to load. What ends up happening, I'm going to go off this, let it load itself, is you get about a month that we're seeing right now of explosive Bitcoin action. Then Ethereum starts to front run the altcoins. It doesn't mean that altcoins don't have bullishness whatsoever. It just means Bitcoin takes an early lead. Then Ethereum dominance starts to climb. I think this year, don't be surprised if Solana, very sophisticated, very well adopted, ends up being like a secondary Ethereum, gets an early run. But then true alt season starts more than likely end of December, late December, early January. So if you're asking me, what am I trading? I'm probably trading and going a little more heavier invested in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana right now.
Okay.
But then come January, I want to take those profits, not all, because I want to stay invest in those, but I want to take some heavy profits, readjust into some of those other altcoins that are going to have some great runs, and ones that keep an eye on. Everyone should be keeping an eye on to think about, depending on who the presidency is, and we start to find out more about regulation. People are asking, why are coins like Chainlink not moving? Why are these coins not going, even though there's some great news? Well, regulation is going to have a major factor in the use case and how institutions adopt into them. Once we find out who the president is, we can actually start having real conversations about regulation.
Yeah.
Once we have clarity on regulation, then these institutions know how to use how they're going to use these altcoins. That's when those coins are going to absolutely tear off and head to the upside. I'm waiting. I'm staying more conservative Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana right now. But January is when I'm expecting that alt season to really rip. I'm going to move move a lot of my money into those more aggressive alts, especially real world assets, and hopefully the history plays out again.
Yeah,
alt
for
season
sure.
tears off and Bitcoin's tails off a little bit.
Well, I think some of the things you hit on there are pretty significant. One is the interesting statement you made there was about Solana being an early mover and kind of tailing in with what could happen with ETH. So that'll be one to watch for sure. By the way, breaking news, Donald Trump has now flipped Wisconsin, it looks like, leading at 51%. So this one was a Harris move and has now reverted. Again, throughout the night, we're going to try to keep you up to date with what's going on. And it's happening on Polymarket, but it's also starting to mirror some of the things that are going on within the polls, electoral votes being awarded. And we're trying to keep an eye on all the different data points that we are tracking right now, because it's kind of a combination of both Polymarket, Kalshi, and of course what this traditional polling data is doing. I want to jump back over to charts with you, Tim, and talk about a couple other tokens here to hit on. One, of course, I want to hit on is Avalanche. Avalanche has had a fairly significant bleed off, and whether or not Avalanche can get, and it's almost being, I will say, criticized as a token, not as a company, but as a token, it's not moving. Everybody's complaining. Where do you think Avalanche is set for, say, by year end? What are your thoughts?
Ooh, good point. So I just kind of talked about this. I kind of referenced Chainlink a little bit, but AVAX is going to be that same camp. It's a real world asset coin that's going to be heavily utilized by institutions, but they're waiting on the regulatory clarity, right? So anyone who's disappointed by a coin like AVAX's price action, this is one of those things you have to hodl. You have to hold on and understand that to get the price moving, we need to see the actual usage of it. And there can't be the heavy usage until organizations and institutions understand just what rules they're playing by. When I look at the chart for AVAX, some things to keep an eye on. I might not give you, I was more bullish on AVAX end of year a couple of months ago. I'll tell you this, with me anticipating that alt season doesn't really start until January, I'm going to do this isn't perfect, but it's impossible to know the perfect level. I still think that Bitcoin easily could be at 100,000 or higher by end of year. Let's just pretend Bitcoin's there. That's a 41% move to the upside. Again, with Bitcoin dominance continuing to climb during that time, I don't think it's ridiculous to see AVAX, if my page will load, there we go, to match that. Not outdo it, not go crazy, but match the moves on Bitcoin and move somewhere in that 40% zone. Let's even be generous, say 50. I wouldn't be surprised to see us somewhere in the world of 36 dollars. They're also on this falling wedge pattern we've been tracking. This falling wedge pattern broke bullish back here in September on the 19th. Well, that prediction should play out. Ooh, it's actually going to a little higher than that. That prediction should send it, in theory, up here towards 46. Let's see. Let's look at some other indicators here on a longer time frame, like the weekly chart, what could give us a couple more months. Yeah, that's going to be a little higher. I like this one right here. I like my call about the 50% move or so. What you're seeing here on the weekly chart is going to be both the smart trail, serious level of resistance, and a good size order block right here around $36, $37, $38. Again, that's about a 50% move to the upside. So it's pretty good. Not enough to steal dominance from Bitcoin, but start that process of making moves to the upside. I'm going to put that there. Just $35, $36 or so. I wouldn't anticipate too much higher. With that said, when January hits, this is why it's so hard to time, because if we start it late December, this could go a lot higher. But when it hits, we could shoot from like a $36 AVAX to new highs relatively quickly with how this works out. We could get up. I know some people are going to call that crazy. We could be sitting at brand new all-time highs above $150 on AVAX February or March easily, with how it could explode when alt season hits.
Interesting you said February. One of the comments over in the chat was talking February. Watch for February. We are going to have John Woo on the show here. I think he's coming in this week. Listen, if you guys aren't subscribed, get subscribed to the channel right now, because we have a unbelievable lineup of top people in the crypto industry, but also in traditional finance that's going to be coming in on the show. I want to hit on to U.S. election versus the Fed rate cut. 5 things that are kind of boiling down to right now within this. And I want to get your opinion on this. So some of it is, many people are looking at this could be just a kind of a sell the news events. Chair Powell Thursday comes in with his potential Fed rate cut. Let me ask you, do you think we'll get a quarter basis points, or where do you think we'll stand this week on the FOMC?
Yeah, I think so. We're so busy looking at the poly market for the presidential election. I don't know if you want to look at the poly market for that as well. I know CME futures tool on my screen. I'll show that real quickly. CME futures is predicting right now 96.4% chance of a cut, right? So that's not close. Like, I've seen CME futures get this wrong, but it was giving like a 60% prediction. Anytime I've seen it above 80, CME futures is pretty dead on. So we are anticipating at this point, based off of this, I would say we're anticipating a 25 basis point cut in November. Now, CME futures has us having one in December as well.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm a little curious about, and I'm surprised he even commented on it, but I'm sure you covered it on your channel as well. Larry Fink here over the last 2 weeks has come out and said we're going to get one more 25 basis point cut, but we might not cut as much as you think. He really wasn't clear, but made it sound like they might stop at 25. And with the heavy odds right now for it being November, that leads me to think they'll do it here in a couple of days, here in 2 days. But then they'll have serious conversations about what they want to do in December. Long story short, though, Paul, I think that people, I was asked on my channel, fear of recession, right? If there's a recession, and really the recession trigger would be massive unemployment rising. In which case, we have the tools at the moment, like the data points or not. We have the interest rates at a good place. We have inflation at a data-wise good place where we can easily start getting aggressive with this. This is a tool at our disposal. No matter who wins president, this goes back to that front, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, I don't see either one of them putting pressure on the Fed to not cut rates. I actually see both of them. Donald Trump has insinuated he wants to cut rates immediately.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris, I mean, that's kind of more of the playbook of the Democrat nominee, is make things easier right now on people. So I think all roads lead to interest rates going down dramatically in 2025. And anyone who's afraid of a recession, I'm not saying there's not going to be a reason we should have a recession in 2025, but if we know anything about how American politics work, we are the kings of kicking that can down the road. And we are sitting in a spot right now with where our inflation, our unemployment, and our interest rates are. We have the tools to delay that recession into 2026 or 2027. I don't think the bull market's in jeopardy right now. I think that actually what you could see is fear of the recession, just to get retail investors away so that institutions can gobble up more cheap assets before they go astronomical in price.
Well, that's the concern right now, and you kind of touched on it, was in reference to the jobs. So economy added just 12,000 jobs. They were looking at a number of, let me zoom in on that just so everybody knows that's not a misprint. They were thinking 100,000 jobs, and we get 1/10 of that. So this is something we covered on the show the other day. But to your point, inflation could be edging up, and I would say you might be right about the factor that could play into a softer December, meaning not getting a rate cut in December, to Larry Fink's point. And I think that will have a little bit of a factor going into it, but it doesn't necessarily strike a nerve, I think, against Bitcoin and traditional digital investment in digital asset investors, because I think people are still looking at the framework of this cycle and what we could see coming out of Congress from a regulatory standpoint. So there is a lot of pro crypto for sure.
Paul, tell me if you disagree. To me, when I saw that data point, you're right. It was gross. It was a massive miss on job numbers. But what would the Fed want to do if it looks like unemployment's about to rise? They want to cut dramatically. So again, I see this. It's one of those things, like I tell people all the time, I hate hearing anyone in our community losing their job and unable to put food on the table. That breaks my heart. It sucks. But I'm also here to help people understand what affects the markets and what makes price go up and what makes price go down. And unfortunately, a weak job market in this situation actually would be very bullish for crypto because it will come with more liquidity because they'll lower the interest rates dramatically. And again, for anyone, and there's probably people listening right now who have either lost a job recently or are in fear of losing their job recently. And if you're that person, my heart goes out to you, and I'm very, very sorry. But I also need to let you know, like, that if you're investing in Bitcoin, that could be your hedge against it all, because
no doubt,
that sign of those unemployments going down, your Bitcoin holdings will go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think a lot of it too plays out into this whole issue with inflation, because it has been sticky. We saw a little bit of a run up on Trueflation over the last couple of weeks. That in itself is a perfect hedge into digital asset, because it's the one thing that will fight against that. And I think most of the people watching our show tonight, you guys probably get that for sure. I want to go into some more tokens though. Let's jump over to SWI, because SWI is one that everybody has been watching. There's been massive moves on it. We had Evan on, their CEO, co-CEO, here a couple of weeks ago. A lot of interest in SWI, and the question is, why are we continuing to see this one be so resilient here, not losing as much steam as what many people thought?
You know, I'm not going to be the foremost fundamental expert, but from what I've perceived fundamentally, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, what's the key name that people have kind of given it? Some people call it the Solana killer. I hate that. But could we see it be like a Solana copycat? I mean, do those of us who have been invested now for at least a year, you've watched Solana dramatically come back from death and be the most explosive, most talked about altcoin in the bull market. And there's similarities between what SUI and Solana are doing. And I'm very bullish on SUI, and I wish I'd bought it a lot sooner. We had people in our community who told me to buy it, probably back, I don't know, definitely below $1 for sure, but probably pushing closer to 40 cents. I didn't get my first buy-in around $1.17. So I didn't catch this one early, but you told our community we were in a bearish structure during this whole rally here in September and October. And I told people you should be expecting a pullback. We had a target of around $1.40, right? This is going to be a pullback. I said, just for the health of how it's going to work, we're going to need to see a pullback of 30-ish%. Well, I was wrong. We ended up only dropping right here to about $1.76, and then to the same level of resistance, right? But we made all the way up to 235, and so I had to readjust. And we told our community, all right, scratch that. Now, instead of having to go all the way to 140, now we only need to go to about 167, 168. Guess where we went? We went to about 160, so I missed it by a little bit there. But the overall point is this movement down sufficed the correction that was needed on the most explosive token. I mean, show me another coin that's relatively highly ranked. I'm not talking about some small market cap of $5 million. Show me a legitimate big coin that outperformed SUI from September to October. You're not going to find it. What happens when you're that explosive? You need to have a healthy correction. Looking at SUI's charts, you can see these 33% dips, 30% dips have been standard after explosive growth. To me, that satisfied the overextended argument. Hey, SUI's way too high, way too quickly. We had our cool off. We came back down. We're now back in making structures of at least a higher low. We technically haven't made a higher high for the second time just yet. Let's get above roughly $2.13 to do it. But there's a lot of signs that is on the table. We are coming into some resistance at the moment right here. You're going to see both the daily smart trail and order block in play. But if we can make a move above, again, if Donald Trump gets elected and we start to see some sparks, if we can make a move above 220, I feel a lot better about getting these new all-time highs. This is a coin that even though alt season won't start for Sui either until January, this is one you could legitimately see a new all-time high before the end of the year. But the biggest reason why is we're only how far? Let's make sure I get this right. I don't want to say a number and be wrong. We're only 13% from all-time high. Right. That would make it so very easy to get higher up there. The target I'd give you for a potential on where we could be by end of year, highest level possibility, we could be up at around 276. That's nothing compared to where Sui's going to be eventually, but that could be a little move right there, even between here and there. It's only a 30% move to the upside, but that's going to be the next major level of question marks of, hey, do people want to take profit once we get into that price discovery mode? So that's kind of what I'm watching at the moment. With Sui, very bullish on it long term. Again, it's not going to replace Solana. So I don't like when people call it a Solana killer, but almost picture like what Shiba Inu was to Dogecoin last market cycle. It didn't surpass Dogecoin, but it had its own credibility of a movement, that it had its own space. It didn't kill Doge, but it complemented it very well and ended up making close to a top 10 coin before the end of the
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think some of the things with Sui also, or Sui, is that you've got an audience, a community that's starting to get very rabid, very similar to the Solana community. The question is whether or not we start to see some of the innovations start to pour out of the Sui community going forward. But yeah, it's going to be one to watch because it does have a lot of blue sky ahead of it. Breaking right now, Tim, is Bitcoin above 71K. So we are moving and continuing to come up the chart here. And you've got Trump coming in, it looks like right now, I'm reading off on the electoral map. Trump has now snagged 23 electoral votes to Harris's 3. But Virginia, of course, expected to get 13 electoral votes right now. Harris leading that 55% a bit. Florida, of course, 30 electoral votes. Trump is leading that race 54 to 44. So Florida is going to be a good one for sure, one of your home states. Let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart. Do you like 100K before year end, or are you still a little bit more reserved on where we get 6 digits?
Well, again, one of my arguments, because it's hard to say these types of moves with any type of certainty, but let's go back here and show you the explosiveness from 4 years ago to give you a understanding of the time frame we're in right now and what is legitimately possible. Now, my chart's taking a while to load here, so give me 1 second here. We're going to get into it. I got to get back here into 2020, and I don't know why TradingView is going stupid slow. It's probably because millions of people all over the planet right now are on TradingView looking at these charts. Let's go back here. Let's go back and look at where we were about this time 4 years ago, right? So you got to go back all the way to early November here. This is around the time where we're deciding Joe Biden is going to be president, right? The price of Bitcoin is sitting at about 15,757. We're not far from all-time highs, not as close as we are currently, but the Bitcoin season before alts took off really started way back in October, right? But it ended right here early in January. We're not going to make it all the way into early January, but that's the timetable we're looking at. An explosive move between where we currently are and right there to start the year. Look at how explosively Bitcoin moved during this time period. It went 173%. Am I saying we're going to match that perfectly? Probably not 173%. But I hope people realize we are only 41% from 100,000. That is not even asking for a whole lot based off how we've moved historically at this time right before the alt season happens to ask for 100K. The truth is, if we matched expectation, we'd go to 150. That to me is probably asking a little much. I think we could be anywhere between 100 and 120 is going to be an interesting zone to keep an eye on before the end of the year, especially if Donald Trump wins. If Kamala wins, let's see if history repeats or if history takes a new route. But the excitement surrounding the potential of a Donald Trump presidency, I think easily sees an 100K Bitcoin in the calendar year 2024.
Okay. I like the 120 number. My question is, if you look at the cycle and you consider the the bull market as it's playing out right now, which we could say see an altcoin season come in January through March, okay? With that being the case, how does this play out over the summer? What's the length, I guess, of this bull run that we're in right now? Do you feel like this fades out toward the end of next year, or is this something that we could see regulation and ETFs continue to push this thing into kind of a forever cycle?
Yeah, Paul, you're going to get me in trouble with this question. This is one that I have actually talked a lot about on our channel. And even some people who are big supporters of the bros, they'll be like, all right, Tim, come on, let's not be crazy here. So I have a theory, Paul, that the 4-year cycle is going to end this cycle.
Okay.
And my reason for that is if you go back and look at the 4-year cycle, obviously it has a lot to do with the halving event. Well, what's also changing about the halving now? This last halving in 2024 was the last real significant halving. I mean, we're down to a place now where the rewards on Bitcoin are so minimal. Halving it is like, okay, I didn't have a lot to begin with anyway, but it was significant. This last halving event was a significant drop in the production of Bitcoin, which of course lowers supply. We're losing that effectiveness of how important a halving event is going to be. That's my first thought there. The second one is, so Bitcoin from 2009 to 2013, right? We noticed for about 4 years after it existed, we hit a high. We start a bear market. That's just the first time it happens. That's just a data point. From 2013 to 2017, now all of a sudden it happens a second time. 4 years separating the peaks. That's called a coincidence. Okay, nothing to think about, just a coincidence. 2017 to 2021, it's now happened 3 times where 4 years separated the peaks. Now we have ourselves a pattern, right? That is where the 4-year cycle pattern became official. I know a lot of people acted like they knew for a fact that November 2021 was going to be the top, but the truth is the 4-year cycle was a concept and a coincidence, not an actual pattern. Now we have a pattern. So why am I saying that if we have a pattern, it's going to end? Well, who follows the pattern here? It's going to be retail investors. What do we know historically happens between institutional investors and retail investors? Institutional investors screw everything up for the retail. They lie to them. They FOMO them. They FUD them. They easy for the average retail investor. So if the average retail investor right now is anticipating an October or November top of 2025 because of a 4-year cycle, isn't that the perfect excuse for institutions to grab a limited supply anyway? I mean, there's estimates right now that less than 5 million Bitcoin are actually on the table for people to get. I mean, we have 20 million in existence, but 15 million of them are locked up in people who don't want to sell for a long time or have been thrown over a boat's edge, right?
Exactly.
There's got to be a way for institutions to get this supply. And to me, the greatest excuse would be all these long-term hodlers who have been holding for 4 years, who understand a 4-year cycle, finally, for the first time in 4 years, are willing to give up their Bitcoin. I think institutions are, I think BlackRock, Fidelity, I think Michael Saylor, they're going to sit there. They don't care if Bitcoin's at 220, 300,000. They're thinking about Bitcoin in the next 15, 20 years being worth 5, 10, 15 million. To them, buying it now for 200,000, that's a steal. That's why I think the pattern's going to be broken. I think retail is going to be left taking profit, thinking they're wealthy, and then missing out on another epic run. I actually think that we could see a bull market go into 2026 before we see a serious pullback. For Bitcoin, I don't even think we pull back more than 50%. I think the days of 70, 80% bear markets for Bitcoin are done. Altcoins can still have good pullbacks. Bitcoin, though, I think the days of big bear markets, that's done.
Well, and I think the factor here is you're getting into a different kind of cycle as we start to see this. You mentioned, obviously with traditional finance, ETFs, as well as I think meme tokens that will continue to see a lot of volatility, but also I think it'll bring a lot of people in, much like, speaking of, Dogecoin did it last cycle. By the way, Tim, have you looked at the Dogecoin chart right now? 15 minutes. Look at this over the last hour. This thing is just rolling. So has Elon Musk started tweeting? Has something gone on with Elon tonight that has caused Doge to essentially take off in the last hour? This is another one. So what do you think? Okay, but let's kind of go back in. I want to stay on the meme coins for a second. Which token do you feel like has the opportunity to really make it maybe into a top 15 token that everybody's, because people have looked at Brett, people have looked at, a handful of others that have started to move into this, whether it's in the SUI ecosystem, you look in the Tron ecosystem, anything that you're seeing that, man, I like this. Man, I'm looking at Dogecoin right now at 185, yeah. So it continues. But anything you like as far as a meme token?
Yeah, I have Doge being close. I don't know if any meme's gonna be a top 10 token. I have Doge maintaining the top level, being somewhere around number 10, maybe a little bit below there. I think a little bit below that, you should have Sheeb. I think people sleep on Sheeb. They disrespect it, but I think Sheeb is still one that's going to stick around. It might not get all the headlines, but it's still going to be a good project. Behind there, I don't invest in memes, but I remember when Pepe first came out as a coin, I knew Pepe was going to, it wasn't a flash in the pan, right? I'm not sure about Bonk and Whiff and Brett and Popcat. I don't know if they make it into 2027, 2028. I don't know. I don't know their timetable. Pepe, however, though, has been a worldwide meme for long before crypto was a thing, right? So that was just a home run to get it integrated into crypto. I think Pepe is, if you're not Sheeb and Dogecoin, you're not going to count them because they were big meme coins last cycle. It's hard to say Pepe shouldn't be your top choice in terms of what coin has a shot at getting in the top 15. Right behind it, we at the Bros, we had a show where we kind of gave our thoughts on where the top rankings. We made an interesting call where we said, when it comes to memes, it's one of those things like the town's not big enough for all of us, right? People are going to latch on to one and they're going to really ride it. So what we did was we had a spot right around number 18, right? So that's close to 15. It could make it up there. And we said, we don't know which one's going to do this, but Bonk or Whiff have a legitimate shot at being a top 20, rivaling for a top 15 coin. It's the newest, freshest dog coin. It's got, both of them have good communities, but I think at a certain point there is hey, let's pick and choose which one are we going to run with here. I could be wrong. We could see both of them do extremely well. But I think there's going to be a level of the cream rises to the top. Some of these coins that have made the top 100 end up falling off. Others continue their ascension in their top 50 rankings. And so that, to me, I think Pepe, and if I had to choose between Bonk and Whiff, I'm probably leaning towards Bonk. So I would say Pepe and Bonk are the two memes that I'm watching saying, hey, these have legitimate shots at being pretty special in this bull market.
Well, and I think the factor here, you look at what's been happening with Doge, and I think just the fact that it's been moving so quickly. By the way, you guys make sure and subscribe right now. Get in on our channel. We're about to crack 713, and if you have not checked out Mr. Tim's channel, Investing Bros, just jump over here right now and get in and subscribe to his channel. So we'll just take a moment, subscribe to Tim's channel. And we definitely want to have him back in. I want to hit on a couple more tokens before we let you go. I know it's a time slot here. And we're going to get back to the current, we are now at, just to give everybody know, Trump is now at 90 electoral votes. Harris is now at 27 coming in. So continuing, North Carolina, Harris is leading 55 to 48. Ohio, Harris is leading 52 to 46. Still quite a bit, and only 30% of the votes are in Ohio, so that's a big one to be watching right now. So lots of stuff happening. We may see a lot more rolling up, and of course I'm sorry? Bad news for the crypto community.
Yeah.
John Deaton has went down in Massachusetts to Senator Warren. So the crypto army still has the general. That was okay, man. That just bummed me out.
I saw that too.
Let's get back to good stuff. Let's get back to good stuff here.
That's a bummer.
I want to talk about Ethereum for a minute because this is one of those tokens that everybody's been in uproar around ETH, whether or not it's been a laggard or has it just not hit its stride in terms of trend in this cycle. What do you like on ETH right now in terms of the charts?
Oh yeah, well, I'll start off. People are upset about Ethereum. I understand it. It had its ETF and it's gone down since then. From a fundamental standpoint, nothing's changed. I'm still very bullish on it. And then again, Larry Fink spoke a lot about crypto here last couple of weeks because Larry Fink had another comment about Ethereum, saying that his thought process about what it's going to do in the future, it hasn't even begun to crack the surface of its true potential. If that doesn't make you bullish, the guy who controls the most wealth in the world is bullish on it.
Well, BlackRock is tied into this. You've got securitized all lined into real world assets, which is exactly literally lockstep with where BlackRock is moving. So it's definitely in the right position. But as far as the charts, is there any signal right now that gives you at least some inkling that that Ethereum could be able to make at least back to its local high by year end?
Yeah, I mean it's ETH season, right? So ETH season should come sometime mid to late November. Right now, what I mean, this is a good level. We had it on here. There's an order block down here. We wanted to buy in at Ethereum down here on 2370. We got it. We got our buy over in the Vesting Bros group. There's a symmetrical triangle that's in play right here. There's gonna be some people that are bearish on this one. I just don't think that narrative really fits to say that this symmetrical triangle pattern should break to the downside. I have this one going to the upside. Again, if I was going to give you a level of kind of understanding where I think Ethereum could go, let's start off, if we get this load, let's talk about when Ethereum kind of exploded and started to make moves to the upside, and what if between, again, kind of the time we are at right now to the end of the year when it kind of transitioned. So we're going back to November, somewhere right in here, right? So Ethereum's kind of trading around $470. In January, we got up to about $1,200. So we're talking move roughly around 184, 186% move to the upside. Even if we just halved that, let's just say we get a 60% pump, we're still talking about not all-time highs, but we're talking about getting up to the highs of this cycle so far, back up here towards $4,000. If we match that move and we do go 160%, yeah, we're talking about brand new all-time highs. I think that's a little much, though. Let's kind of expect somewhere between not quite all-time high just yet, but new highs for this cycle so far. So somewhere in this range is where I'm expecting Ethereum to be end of year. I would love to be wrong. I would love to see new all-time highs on Ethereum. My portfolio would be very happy about it. But that's what I'm going to kind of put my expectation for Ethereum for end of year. Just so you know, though, that cycle, that movement on Ethereum did not stop at the year end of 2020, and it kept rolling into February, right? So this is one I would predict new all-time highs for Ethereum easily by the end of January, but maybe not quite by the end of the year. It wouldn't have had enough time to roll as explosively as Bitcoin just yet.
Okay, man, we are getting so much coming in. Trump is leading in Pennsylvania. This is a huge battleground state. Also, this may be why we're seeing so much of the green right now in the charts right now. The House of Representatives have snagged 121 pro-crypto candidates. The Senate has 5 pro-crypto candidates and only 3. So this is just a reminder, everybody, this fight does not stop here. We still have to pass regulation to really make it happen here in the United States. Get behind the people who are on this list. Just to jump into the House real quick to take a look. Because there's so many coming in right now, but a lot of very strong support for crypto, and we are winning, guys. We are winning. And what I mean, crypto is winning in the sense that we're starting to get people that understand what's happening in Capitol Hill. There, of course, is Byron Daniels, one of my guys here in the state of Florida, absolutely killing it. I think we're going to see some very interesting things happen here. And of course, Matt Gaetz looks like he has pulled it ahead and been in a position. A lot of normal faces that we see kind of fighting the crypto fight for sure, but I want to scan quickly down to the ones who are not, because these are the ones that we have to go concentrate on as a crypto community. If you see any of these people in your states, get them out there. Start helping them understand what is going. Right now we have Sherrod Brown still holding a position, even though that is not a final on Sherrod Brown. If he wins, we will still have an anti-crypto army out there going at it. Speaking of anti-crypto, I got to talk about Immutable. Immutable gets a Wells notice. We start to see things going on with IMX. And if you look at some of those kinds of tokens, do you have a chart on IMX? I'm kind of curious because we saw a big regress and a good potential move.
It fell pretty dramatically. I'll find that. It's not one of my saved ones, but I'll take a look at what I got going on over here.
And I want to go to, while Tim's doing that, I want to go to a poll real quick and take a look at the poll, the viewer poll. Okay, are you waiting on election results before buying more crypto? Right now, it's kind of split, Tim. 53%, yes, I'll wait. And then some people are saying, no, I'm going to go ahead and buy right now. So keep voting on that, guys, throughout. I think, will we leave that poll up, guys? Do you want to leave it up? No, we're going to go to another one. All right, we've got another one. Do you have an IMX chart, Tim?
Yeah, we'll go to IMX. There's actually a case of this most recent pullback. It's not necessarily the end of the world. IMX, if you look here, we're just going to do a little bit of historical analysis, had itself a nice head and shoulders pattern in play here a couple of months ago, right? So these levels that we fell down to were pretty expected. Did it hit exactly? It actually didn't even go as low as it really could have, all the way down back towards 80 cents. But yeah, you can see here, whereas the rest of the crypto space is more either trading sideways or going to the upside, IMX took a major spill here over the week, last week or so. That being said, we can found a nice bounce right back here on the daily closes of August. That's going to be some strong support right in here. If we can continue to hold it, there's an order block in play right here. It's saying it's a bearish breaker block. That's what the pink is right here. But we really haven't been below it long enough to sustain and say that that's going to be very, very strong. I think that there's a good chance we end up seeing some form of bounce here soon. Take profit levels a little bit lower here on the daily chart. But here's what I like. I like the oscillators right here. It's not officially a buy signal yet, but you can see the RSI after showing some pretty good oversold levels, getting a nice bounce on the RSI. The MACD looks like it wants to cross bullish again. We had some fake outs back in here, but pretty much for the first time since back here on September 11th. And then my personal favorite way to buy. This is my go-to buy signal, and you're seeing if we can sustain. I guess we have to wait now. This is a new daily candle. We have to wait until tomorrow night to confirm this. But we have my perfect buy signal. These reversals have been in play. We have a green reversal. We have bullish momentum from this dot right here on the oscillator. But this part of the indicator, this is money flow. And the money flow, it looks to be heading back to the upside. When those three things flash, I've found a 90% probability of a rally in price at least back up to the smart trail. That smart trail is coming in back up here around 156. I think there's a chance, again, if tomorrow closes well, we could get a bounce easily right back up here to 160, 156 area into this order block, into that smart trail. But we'll have to kind of wait and see on that one. But yeah, it took a nice dip. But guess what? When things dip, that's when people are buying the dip. Yeah. I would not be surprised to see a nice little rally on IMX, just getting us back up to some prices we were rejecting at not only just 2-3 weeks ago.
Tim, I want to get something before I let you go, and that is 3 tokens that you would put in your bag. And that's if you already own them, great, that's no problem. But 3 tokens you'd put in your bag for year end. So think of it as your stocking stuffers for Christmas time. Do you come in with Solana, SWI, Bitcoin? What do you want? What do you want in your stocking?
I'm going to be boring here, Paul. I said it earlier. It's not alt season yet, right? I'm not saying I don't hold alts. I'm not saying I don't love the alts. I love my positions on them. It's not alt season yet. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. Go with the big 3. They're the ones that are going to more than likely. I'm not even saying they have the greatest gains in terms of percentages, but they're the safest for sure. I don't know which altcoins will outperform them, which ones won't. They're, to me, for the rest of the year, the best place to store my money. New Year is where I'm taking profits, and I'm moving into some of my other assets.
There you go. Of course, we'll have Tim back on the show in the coming weeks. We will continue to hit on that. Make sure and visit his channel over on YouTube, Investing Bros with a Z over there. So make sure and check it out. Tim, hey, it's been great having you on. Thanks so much, man, for stepping in tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Paul. We'll talk again soon.
You bet. All right. Excellent. All right. All right, man, we are just knocking it out right now on live election results. Of course, we're holding at 90 electoral votes for President Trump. Kamala Harris, of course, right now, Trump looks like he's edging ahead over 105. 105 million votes, or 10 million votes, I should say, going in right there. 127 pro-crypto candidates, 52 anti. So you guys can hit the Stand With Crypto site and hit the live election results, kind of follow along if you want to get into that. If you look at some of these states, let's take a look at Ohio right now. This is Sherrod Brown. Let's take a look right here. Okay, so this is one that's pretty significant right here is this Ohio race. And not all the votes are in, but right now it looks like Sherrod Brown may be having enough lead, which is why they may have called it here on Stand with Crypto, over Bernie Moreno. This is one that would be a gut punch, because Bernie Moreno would make a huge benefit for pro. Look at it moving right now, 15, almost 16% right now. So, well, listen, if you guys are out there in Ohio, you know what to do. If Sherrod Brown does win again, just go out there, start trying to, educate these lawmakers and help them understand really where the future of crypto is going, and really where the future of innovation is going here in the U.S. I want to get to a few questions. I know you guys were asking a few, and we're going to do that. I do have another interview coming up here pretty soon with Cody Carbone, coming in from the Digital Asset Group. So we want to talk about that. And let's go into a few questions right here. What do we have? Tayway says, too many boomers in Massachusetts. Of course, that's in reference to John Deaton's loss. So, I'm sorry, John, if you're out there watching, listen, I think this is, first of all, you did a great job. I think he has absolutely put crypto on the map. And he's one of those guys that you just like. And he's been on our show many times. I would say he's a friend of ours. And, it's sad to see that. But listen, he put up a good fight in what looked to be a true David versus Goliath scenario. RC Hodler says XRP is for cross-border payments, BRICS, nations. Man, guys, let me tell you something. If you're not following the BRICS situation right now, go back and watch a couple of our videos. Just search BRICS on the channel. Go watch those, because we've got Andy Schneckner. We're going to bring him back on the show. He was a big favorite. And he talks about digital assets. He's a big gold guy. I get it. But the point is he's really talking about the future of where BRICS could go. 36 nations now with a greater GDP than the G7. That is worrisome for the US dollar. And of course, as we all know, Bitcoin and digital assets will be there. So Texas is holding the line. I like it. Errol Ball says Elizabeth Warren's win confirmed. Yes, it is confirmed. If so, I can demand a recount. I wish that was the case, but it's not going to happen. Dip Buyer says Doge is going strong. And yes, man, guys, Doge was absolutely on fire. Is it still moving? Oh, it's starting to dip right now. Are we still on Doge? Yeah, starting to dip right now. I'm on the 5-minute though. Let's go to the 15. This is a hold. So people playing with Doge tonight. So that's going to be one to watch. XRP is the only legal clarity as a non-security. So that is true. No doubt about it, which we did a ton of swell events. That's XRP's big event here in Miami. We did a ton of interviews by that, or around that. So make sure and go back and check those interviews out. There's several in there that I think will give you quite a bit. So let's go take a look at the poly market swing states real quick. Let me refresh this because poly market is moving. Trump is starting to edge up, almost 9.7% in the predictive markets. Let's take a look at the swing states. Georgia coming in at 16 electoral votes right now. Looks like Georgia might. Now, again, this is the betting side of it, but these things navigate quickly as we start to see the data coming in. It's almost really kind of the evolution of truth right now. Georgia, Trump is holding a lead at 1.4 million votes to 1.1 million votes from Harris at 55 to 44%. So Georgia looks like those 16 electorals may be coming in. Carolina, right now, North Carolina, Kamala Harris holding a 52 to 65, or excuse me, a 52 to 46 lead on North Carolina. Not necessarily a swing, but definitely one to watch. Arizona holding a commanding lead right now. Virginia, Kamala Harris holding a lead, slight lead, with 51 to 47, and Trump on the rise right now. It is a close race in Virginia. Wow, much closer than I thought in Virginia. Nevada, Trump holding a 60% on the poly market. Wisconsin starting to flip further in what could be a very interesting point right now on 270. If you look at Wisconsin, and let's go in and grab Wisconsin as a red state right now. Georgia looks like it's going to come. North Carolina is still on the cusp, but there's a lot starting to show as polls are closing. And right now, Trump is at 90 electoral votes. Kamala Harris is at 27. So just to keep you guys updated on that. Let's go back to the questions real quick. Harris for the win. The night is young, says Carlos James. Listen, I'm glad that there are all types in our comments and in our Q&A. This is what crypto is about. It is a very bipartisan topic, and I think it's for everyone. Listen, it doesn't matter what aisle that you're on. I think the key is that people understand this is helping a lot of people break out of their situation. So just remember that as you guys get going. Render is below $1. Tayway says, I won't look at the chart, but Render is one of my favorite tokens, so I still continue to hold that one for sure. People are sleeping on the Myth token. Man, what do you know, Jason Groves? I won't say anything, but we have a surprise for you about Mythos. So keep watching, make sure and subscribe, and be on the lookout for something cool. Solana has gone down so many times, but not affected the price. Remarkable. Solana's ecosystem is quite something. Let's see. AVAX won't start till February. This was the deal, Jason Groves. Man, we got to put this guy in. He's coming up with some zingers here. I like you, Jason. You're like our reading my mind here. So good stuff out there. Let's see. What else do we? Randall Bishop, you are torn on Sui. I am not torn on Sui. And let's get it right. It's Sui, guys, not Sui. I'm not torn on it at all. This is a long-term hold for me. I'm going to continue to go in that direction. So I am for it big time. Let's go take a look at Stand with Crypto again. Look at the map filling up here, guys. Texas, we've picked up 22 Pro. In Oklahoma, 4 Pro. Kansas even picked up 1 Pro. These are Pro Crypto representatives, and 6 Pro. This, you know what this tells me, guys? This tells me that you've been working out there. You've been doing it, and that's the whole point of our show, is hopefully getting people out there to try to get people moved in. So Polymarket is now, let's go back to Polymarket. Man, the guys are shooting stuff at me like crazy. Okay, so Senate is coming. Looks like it's going. I think yep. All right, let me get a refresh on this. Whew. Man, so much stuff happening here, guys. Data is flowing in quickly. All right, so we have, looks like presidency is holding a 66% toward Trump right now. Senate is absolutely Republican. And we may flip the House. This would be pretty huge. It is still early, though, guys. It is still early. But if you take the House, the Senate, and the presidency, last time we had that was Obama. A lot happening out there right now. Massachusetts is all Democrats. That's why John, John had that very specific statement when he came on, right there at the end of his campaign. And it was a challenge, but I think, he was the right guy for the fight. Don't count him out, because this guy is not going away. I think he may come back and try again. Whew, lot happening out there. We're going to get to another interview coming up here with Cody Carbone. Now, remember, guys, that there is a huge battle in D.C. right now, waging like you've never seen. That's why you've seen so much money being poured in to this election from all sides. And there is a reason, and that is because we are up against big banks. We are up against a lot of what we're going to see in what has been kind of the swamp, in the essence of where Democrats and Republicans, both sides, are in. So finally, I think maybe we have pushed enough buttons to be able to get people that truly understand what's happening here in crypto to move into DC and start changing things out there. So if that is the case, you guys are in for a very, very profitable next few years, because it's going to be something that starts to really fly. Just as a reminder, I want to see if I can go find this. Yeah, I don't want to go to that yet. There was one other chart I wanted to show, just to show you guys on. I'm going to get to it here in a second. Yeah, right here, key contest. Look at the numbers right here. This is 435 seats that are up for grabs. 33 seats are up for election in the Senate, and 1 seat is up for special election. The Senate is a very, very, the House is a very interesting spot, but we are picking up seats in the Senate. So all of that is positive. We'll go from there. Okay, you want to go to that clip real quick? Yeah, let's do it. I've got one clip I want to go to, which is the Sherrod clip. This is Sherrod Brown. It'll give you guys a little bit of alignment around what is happening out there with him. Now, remember who Sherrod Brown is. This is essentially the lieutenant of Elizabeth Warren. And if we're going to see change in Congress, we've got to be able to start to shift. Now, what I will remember, if you guys go back and look at some of the clips that we showed in the last interview with John Deaton, was that there was a couple of clips in there where Senator Warren was actually opening up to crypto. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen. Don't get, everybody in an uproar. But there is a possibility where we could start to see enough pressure on the anti-crypto army because of a lot of the new people coming into Congress and because of possible regulatory alignment coming in. Do we have that clip ready? All right, let's go to that clip real quick.
The crypto industry has poured lots of money into this race. You have supported giving regulatory certainty to Bitcoin and other digital currencies. You've also supported a Bitcoin reserve, allowing 401ks to also invest in crypto. Tell me about that. How do you want crypto to be used in a practical way in the coming decade?
And what's happening is because of people like Sherrod Brown and Elizabeth Warren, they're pushing the industry overseas. Europe is way ahead of us, something I never thought I'd say in the technology sector. So we have to make certain that the crypto companies understand what the regulation is, what the tax policy is, so that this technology flourishes right here in America. Sherrod Brown, unfortunately, is the least qualified person I can think of to regulate crypto. He doesn't even understand how email works, let alone understand how this technology works.
Yeah, well, look, at this point, I think people are questioning whether or not the people actually writing the legislation and the framework around Bitcoin actually understand Bitcoin and digital assets.
Well, the punchline is they absolutely don't, Maria. They have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the least qualified people. These are people that are just way past their prime, that have no idea how technology works. That's the problem. We need people in Washington, D.C., that it's a new generation of people who actually understand technology. As you know, I built a technology company using blockchain that is now providing software to multiple state governments. It's doing really well. It's saving them a fortune. We need people in Washington, D.C. who are going there to actually get things done with a basis in knowledge and not just want a job because it's the only job they can get.
All right, so that was Bernie Moreno. Just to give you an update on Bernie's race right now, this is Sherrod Brown. Again, this is the Ohio Senate race right now. Playing in 828 is the last updated, and it's moving. Listen, Moreno gained some votes. We're at a little bit over 1 million votes right now for Sherrod Brown. This is a dogfight. 850,000 votes here for Moreno. This may flip. It's still early. I understand that. We got to get there to the pull side, but this is a significant one because this would damage Senator Warren's position in terms of the anti-crypto army. So a lot happening out there. And of course, if you look at the number of House of Representatives, 136 pro-crypto, we have 53. This is a little bit too many, guys. I know there are going to be people out there against it. I get it. But the point is that we got to do a better job at helping the House of Representatives truly start to understand what's happening out there. So if you know who your House rep is, you can go find out this in your own little district within your states. Go find out who they are. It doesn't matter if they've won or they've lost. Get out there and let people know that you support, and I shouldn't say won or lost, if they're pro or against crypto, get out there and let them know where you stand, because I think this could sway a few things, maybe sway a vote that comes to the floor of the House going. Pro-crypto candidates on Senate right now 6-3. Let's take a look at our senators coming in right here. All right, so these are all reps coming in, but it looks good. Yeah, a lot happening. Hey, listen, I want to go to another interview. He's waiting to come in and do this. We're going to break this down because this will get into D.C. and a lot of the situations that are happening around regulatory and not alignment, but also how this may play out in the next few months. So you guys don't want to miss this next interview. It's going to be with Cody Carbone. Stand by and we'll get Cody right on. All right, so welcome into the show, Cody. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming in tonight. We appreciate it.
Great to see you here. It's an exciting night.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. Obviously, we see everything happening right now as polls are starting to close. We'll take a look at some of the results coming up, so make sure you guys stick around for a lot of that. Cody, I want to get into, first of all, many of people that may not necessarily know your role over at the Digital Chamber. Give me just a quick rundown what you guys are doing right now, especially on election day.
Well, we're keeping track of all of the races that impact digital asset policy. And we're taking a look at what this will mean, what tonight will mean for not only the next 60 days in the lame duck, but what it will mean for the next Congress. What is the next 4 years going to look like with the new administration? We are keeping our members informed. We're keeping the entire digital asset and blockchain community informed. We're going to be coming out with a ton of resources in the next few days, weeks, and months. And so we're all watching with bated breath right now.
I mean, this could go a lot of different ways. Many people are looking at a Trump possible win and what that looks like. We'll break that down. And also a Harris possible win. What does that do to crypto in general? I want to get your opinion just quickly on Gary Gensler, which is one of the, I would say, the nemesis of crypto as we continue to see Wells notices flowing out of the SEC's office. If we were to see a Trump win, do you feel, first of all, is it possible to even get rid of Gensler on day one? Could that even be possible if Trump were to win?
Not possible for him to fire him on day one. So he's not allowed to do that under the Vacancies Act. What Trump could do to really nullify Gary Gensler is that the president has the power to appoint whoever he wants as chair. So the president on day one, if Trump is to win, could say, you know what, Gensler, I don't want you to be chair anymore. I'm going to appoint a different commissioner as chair. So effectively demoting him and really taking away his power.
All right, so that could happen, everyone, late in January as we potentially see Trump take the White House, if that is in fact the case. There are some things that I want to get into in terms of the seats to watch. For everybody, if you guys are not following Stand With Crypto, go over there. They're doing election updates. Some of this is just now coming in, so as things start resulting, we'll get a chance to see some of these flow in. I want to go into a couple of key states. Well, first of all, tell me a little bit about what you think. Is Pennsylvania, as much of a impact as it has on the election, is there anything there that you feel has an impact on crypto, Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. It's one of the key Senate races that I'm watching. Dave McCormick, the Republican who's challenging the incumbent Bob Casey, who is a huge name in Pennsylvania. Yeah. His family has been involved in politics forever there. Bob Casey, even though he hasn't been a big voice on crypto like an Elizabeth Warren on the Democratic side of the aisle, he is one of the co-sponsors of her bill, the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act, that would effectively ban crypto. He has not been an ally by any means. And so Ken McCormick, who has been very favorable in his public positioning on digital assets, can he overcome a lot of the odds against him and some of the polling? Can he win that seat? That's going to be a key race to watch. And if Dave McCormick is able to win, take out someone who has been an opponent of our industry and bring in a champion, I think the Senate looks very good for Republicans, and the Senate next year looks very good for the crypto industry.
All right, so if we do get a win, a handful of wins, I want to jump also for some of you guys, let's go back over to another state that I'm watching, and that is Ohio. Ohio is another major and key race around Bernie Moreno and, of course, Sherrod Brown, who's been an absolute terror on crypto. What are your thoughts on, first of all, do you think Moreno can win this tonight over Sherrod Brown?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Ohio is a Republican state. This is not a purple state anymore. Ohio is Republican. It has gone for Trump overwhelmingly in the last two elections. I expect Bernie Moreno to have a great, great chance at taking the seat. I mean, this is the seat that the entire crypto industry is watching. Mm-hmm. This is where all of those huge super PACs, all of their money is going into, and they wanted a scalp. That scalp is Sherrod Brown. As you said, Paul, he has been one of the biggest antagonists of our industry. He is the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee. And if you want to make noise and you want to show that crypto is here to stay and we are a political force, it is taking out Sherrod Brown tonight.
So Bernie could do it. You look at this, I want to talk about the ripple effects that could have in the Senate Banking Committee. You look at the power that Elizabeth Warren wields and the potential of her outlasting John Deaton in Massachusetts tonight. If that does occur, how would that flow out into some of these committees, especially those who could be flowing very anti-crypto legislation? What do you think could happen with that kind of scenario?
Well, first and foremost, I'm rooting for John. He has an uphill battle, but I wish him all the best, and he's ran a great race in Massachusetts. If the Senate is to flip, and if Democrats are no longer in power, we then see a huge shift. We see a Senate banking chairman likely to be Tim Scott from South Carolina, who has already said that on day one of his first actions as committee chairman would be to create a digital assets subcommittee and to give that subcommittee chairmanship to Cynthia Lummis, who, as everyone knows, is the crypto queen in the U.S. Senate. That subcommittee would also have subpoena power, and they would start to unveil what is going on at the SEC. What is this regulation by enforcement posture that they've had? Why is this administration, the current administration, the Biden administration, been so hostile? It changes everything. It neutralizes Elizabeth Warren's power. We have a Republican Senate who is going to bring in some of those agency heads and really take them to task. Elizabeth Warren won't have the power no matter what, I believe, in the next administration, because I think she made a handshake deal with President Biden to get a lot of her people in the financial regulatory. Those people be neutralized and taken out if the Republicans are to win the Senate, and Tim Scott, Dave McCormick, Bernie Moreno, some of these new faces come in and are advocates for the industry.
So, Cody, DC, you understand the swamp. Everybody understands that it has been a slow process of getting even crypto legislation on the dockets. And even with the amount of potential crypto positive candidates and also new people coming in, but also some of the lawmakers that are there now, even with that, do you feel like there is a real possibility of getting some stuff done? Like, really, let's get it done.
Absolutely. And there's never been greater momentum. We have new faces that we are expecting tonight to learn and who are coming in on both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, saying enough is enough. This industry is here to stay. I think for so long, the last decade really, we've just been fighting for relevancy. Hey, we're here to stay. We're not a fad. This is not a trend. You can't ignore us. No one is ignoring us anymore. Yeah. And so I think now the momentum turns to, all right, we have legislative proposals out there. That's great. We got a nice win by moving FIT in the House. We've talked about stablecoins for years. Now it's time to do something. And hopefully we'll have the people in power who will finally say, you're right, it's time to do something. And on day one, let's move a bipartisan crypto bill.
All right, I want to get into some other seats that are important. Before I go there, though, I want to kind of get your opinion on this. And this is really where the money has been flowing out of these super PACs. You look at Fair Shake and others. But let's just go one negative analysis. Let's say Trump loses. There's been a lot of money going into not only Trump, but also the candidates that support what Trump represents. Does that change the floor for how money is going to be coming into DC to support crypto in the future? Or do you think companies are just going to say, hey, listen, we tried, we're going to start offshoring, and off they go? What's your opinion?
I think the tie between crypto and political giving is here to stay. You saw Fair Shake yesterday already announced that they're already pledging $75 million to 2026 elections. I think that was very intentional to show that, yes, you know what, if things don't go well tonight, this is not a one-time election deal where we now, pick up our ball and go home. We're here to stay. We have political momentum on our side. We have the political weight and the financial weight. And so we're going to be giving to candidates for the next 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, and we're going to be up there in terms of political giving with the banking industry, the real estate industry, all the big boys out there. Pay attention to us, whether you're a candidate who is running tonight or a candidate who's running in 2 years.
Yeah, I'm looking at the site here with Stand With Crypto, and of course, I mean, gosh, look at all these A's. This is so beautiful to see. I just love it.
And look at the R's and D's.
Yeah, I know, right? It's very, very bipartisan. I love to see that. And, Tom Emmer's been on our podcast. We've got to get many more. I mean, we've got to get Lori on. I've had a chance to hear her and many others. I mean, is there anyone, there's Richie Torres, which is, I think, one of the best Democrats out there. And even, Ro Khanna's been on our show. These are the kind of things I think that really benefit this, this bipartisan cross-aisle approach. The real question is of the A's that we have out there in terms of scorecards, who are you watching right now that could be at risk or that you're really concerned about being able to continue their role in DC?
Well, I look here just on the screen, you see Ted Cruz. He's in a tough race. I know it's Texas, but he's in a tough race, and he's been a huge ally, while Colin Allred, his opponent, has not been an ally. Some of the other names that are in risk: Don Davis, a House member for Democrat from North Carolina. He sits on the House Ag Committee. Massive ally. He has been one of those members who have supported FIT, who supported the nullification of SAB 121. He's running a really, really tough race. There are a ton of others here. And there's also some newcomers who are coming in that I'm really excited about, that I think have a great shot, but have a tough race. Brian Jack being one of them. Sarah McBride from Delaware, a Democrat. There's going to be a lot of new talent. I see here too, Brittany Pedersen. Yeah. That is one who was one of the 5 Democrats to support, or 6 Democrats to support FIT out of the House Financial Services Committee. Initially, she took a tough position. It wasn't politically popular back then to be supportive of crypto legislation. She's in a race for her life right now in Colorado, where the Republican has really good odds and really good numbers. These are the type of people we need to keep here. These are the type of the people that I hope that the super PACs and any individual donor who is a single issue crypto voter says, hey, I want to make sure I support them, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. I want to make sure that there are people who are energized by this technology, who see the importance of it, and they stay in Washington to actually get bills past the finish line.
You know, for many of us, we track a lot of the people who have been on the forefront of crypto, especially kind of pulling the ball forward. You look at Patrick McHenry, who is leaving Washington. You look at Tom Emmer, a handful of others that are coming in. We had Byron Donalds on right here, a good example. This is a Republican in Florida. He's been very active. Can you give me possibly people, I'm just thinking for all the people who are involved in crypto media out there, being able to get the message out to audiences, etc., who do you think can take those kinds of roles of leadership that McHenry has held, and even Emmer to a certain extent, whether or not he'll be as involved possibly, but there are many new names coming in. Who should we keep an eye on?
So on the Republican side, obviously huge shoes to fill with Patrick McHenry retiring. But you've got a race for the chairmanship, and we'll know next week, as the House Republicans are going to hold their leadership elections, who's going to take that spot. You've got a ton of crypto allies running. Some names you may have heard of, like French Hill, who's the chairman of the Digital Asset Subcommittee in the House, but some other names that you may have not heard of. Andy Barr, Republican from Kentucky, has been very vocal in his support for crypto. Bill Huizenga, Republican from Michigan, very vocal in his support for crypto. These are the names that are young, that are interested in the innovation, that understand blockchain applications. Brian Stile is on the House Financial Services Committee. He took Paul Ryan's seat back in the day in a really tough race in Wisconsin, has been very vocal. He's been one of the offices that has reached out to us, and I know others, saying, I want to learn about this technology. I want to learn about why my constituents care about this technology and what I can do to protect those constituents who are interested in this. On the Democratic side of the aisle, you mentioned, I think, one of the greatest Democrats, or one of the greatest people on these issues in the United States, Richie Torres. Richie Torres is a young leader who represents New York City. You can't get much more powerful than that. Brittany Pedersen, we talked about. Don Davis, Darren Soto, who doesn't get a lot of love for being one of the initial co-chairs and founders of the Blockchain Caucus. So those are some of the names that don't get some of the headlines, like a Patrick McHenry or a Tom Emmer, but I think powerful for this industry going forward.
With Elizabeth Warren possibly losing some of her lieutenants, who do you think she goes to? Because there's going to be some new marching orders. We know it. Everybody's ready for it, I think, to a certain extent. Who are the people that we're watching right now that could be very negative toward the crypto legislation going forward and possibly join Elizabeth Warren in her fight?
I would start by taking a look at her Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act. This is the crypto ban bill, and there's 19 Democrats that are on this bill with her. Those Democrats are the one I am most worried about that will join her in this fight, because they've already taken that initial step in joining her legislation that would effectively ban this industry. Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada, Dick Durbin, one of the most vocal anti-crypto people in the U.S. Senate. He's also the leader right now, currently, of the Senate Judiciary Committee. There's a few other names on the committee. Brian Schatz being one from Hawaii. Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin, folks who you might not hear about or you don't see on CNN every day, or they don't make the headlines, but folks that could really help her in her anti-crypto fight.
Yeah, I'm looking at just the list here. You got Mark Warner on there, Elizabeth Warren, Brad Sherman, who's been very somewhat against, Roger Marshall, all of which have been holding that position. But I'm very positive. I'm looking at, to your point, is that we're seeing so much bipartisanship here. When you look at the FIT bill and how close we were to really getting this across the line, and most likely we'll get legislation on a stablecoin bill, how many seats do you think we have to win, and or how many seats do we have to flip to possibly get the FIT 21 bill through both the House and the Senate?
I think it's tough to put a number on it. I think what's most important is who comes in and then who's going to win both chambers and take those leadership spots.
Mm-hmm.
So very candidly, if Democrats win the House, which it's looking very possible tonight that could happen.
Yeah.
It's really a 50-50 coin flip. Maxine Waters, who will be the chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee, has already said, I want to start fresh when it comes to market structure legislation. I want to take FIT and essentially throw it out. That is very bad for moving something very early in the next Congress. If you look at the Senate, and if it stays the same, Sherrod Brown, especially now, who will have a gripe with the digital asset industry for coming after him, likely won't take up FIT. Same thing in the Senate Ag Committee, where he will still be a leader in that committee. That likely not to take up FIT, likely not to take up stable coins. They'll likely want to focus on new legislation that is on anti-money laundering and consumer protections. And so I think those strides that we have made in market structure and have we made in stable coins is really about less the amount of people we need to flip, but who is going to be in leadership. I think we are going to have a ton of Democrats and Republicans coming into the new Congress that want to get something done. If we have a Democratic Senate still, the one saving grace is that Chuck Schumer will stay majority leader, and he has been very vocal that he wants to move digital asset legislation. So then it becomes a power struggle. Can Chuck Schumer say, Elizabeth Warren, stand down, Sherrod Brown, stand down, we're going to move something forward? However, that hasn't come to fruition yet.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's spin it the other way. Let's assume that we start to see the table slide toward a Harris win. And what that would look like, especially with some of the assignments, what we would see coming out of the SEC. Could we see her come in and possibly move Gensler over to the Secretary of Treasury? What are your opinions on what could happen in terms of next moves, especially that would affect crypto in the next, say, 6 months?
I'm very optimistic, whether it's Harris or Trump. I think we're going to be in a better place no matter what. I think Harris wants to come in and bring in all new people from the Biden administration. So I think if you look at the SEC, you look at the CFTC, and you look at some of the agencies we don't talk about enough, Operation Choke Point, and the fact that a lot of crypto banking services, that is because of the pressure from the prudential regulators at the Fed, at the FDIC, at the OCC. I think Harris brings in new people. I think Harris has shown that she is interested in innovation. People forget she's from California. Silicon Valley has bankrolled a lot of her campaigns thus far, whether it was for U.S. Attorney General or it was for the U.S. Senate. She is very close to big tech, and she has already said, I want a U.S. regulatory framework for cryptocurrencies. The one thing as well that we alluded to earlier in the show is that she didn't have to make a handshake deal with other candidates like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
She didn't have to make that deal that would say, hey, you know what? If I win and I now have your support, I'm going to put your people in positions of power. That is what has held up this administration from effectively moving crypto policy. It's Elizabeth Warren's generals are all over the financial regulatory agencies because Biden had to make that handshake deal. So I think we'll be in a good place. I think we'll see new names floated very, very quickly at the SEC, Treasury, and all the other agencies that impact this industry. And so I think we'll be in a good spot come January 20th if it is a Harris administration, even though she hasn't been as publicly favorable like former President Trump.
Right. I want to look at the scenario playing out. We're just looking at some of the polling here on Polymarket. Again, this is shifting by the minute as we go through the night, but I want to look at the scenario that plays out both with Harris and also Trump because of the kind of teams that they've been building around. Now, some of which I think could flow to crypto. You look at Mark Cuban, who has been very vocal for, Harris, and you look at his position also within some of the alignment around, some of the scenarios that have played out within these crypto town halls, et cetera. Do you feel like Cuban could play a significant role in possibly advising the White House, at least from the Democratic side, that would be pro-crypto? I know he's very pro-digital assets right now.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's already doing that. I think that he has been one of the influential advisors that has gotten her campaign to go as far as they have, which I know there's probably some folks rolling their eyes saying, how far has that been? She said one thing. I think that took a lot for her. I mean, because that was her going against the current administration where she sits as vice president, who had been very anti this industry. She said, no, I want to be favorable towards this industry. I want a future where the U.S. leads on digital assets and blockchain. I think a lot of that was from her advisors, and one of them being Mark Cuban. So I think it's hugely important that we have an influential voice, not only at the top for future President Harris, if she is to win tonight, but for all of those members of Congress that we talked about. I know that Mark Cuban was one of those folks that were at Ro Khanna's roundtable when he sat down back over the summer with digital asset companies saying, hey, I need to learn about this. We need to find a way for Democrats to lead on this. Mark Cuban helped organize that and helped execute that conversation. So I think he'll be hugely influential. Even if he is not in a position to join the administration, I think his voice will be heard.
Well, he also has a fairly good relationship, I think, with Schumer. So there's been some alignment there that could flow into a very positive scenario playing out for crypto in general. I think even if Harris does take the House. Okay, so let's flip over to the Republican side. You look at Vivek Ramaswamy, I would say is maybe one of the more aware of digital assets. He's coming from a tech background, but he's also talked about where digital assets play a role in not only the United States, but also globally. And then, of course, you have Elon playing it as well. Maybe not necessarily directly on crypto, though he is very friendly to it. What are your thoughts on who would be one of the key people to watch if Trump were to take the White House and needed some of that advisory role capacity?
You just named two hugely important ones in Vivek and Elon. They've been massively vocal in their support for digital assets and cryptocurrencies over the last few years. I think a few others are look at who has been vocal on the industry side that were in the previous industry. Chris Giancarlo, Crypto Dad.
Okay.
Yeah. Brian Brooks, who formerly was the acting director of the OCC and has now been CEO of several crypto companies. Paul Atkins, Dan Gallagher, folks who have been at the SEC previously under Republican administrations and have now advocated for the crypto industry. I think some of those names, which might not be as big as Vivek out there, but will be hugely important. And then don't forget, if Trump wins tonight, J.D. Vance would be his vice president. J.D. Vance has been very vocal in support of this. Before J.D. Vance was senator, he was in the VC industry, and he was working very closely with a lot of crypto companies. J.D. Vance was working on, before he got nominated to be the vice president under the Trump administration, was working on his own market structure bill, was trying to take FIT and even make it more industry friendly. So having the number two there, who is hugely into this industry and supportive of this industry, I think would be a massive advisor for President Trump if he is to win tonight.
When you look at that and because really if you now start to boil this down into let's get some stuff done, it looks as though we're going to win some seats. It's very possible we could see a little bit of a power shift occurring in DC. What we've had a chance to talk about tonight is the money is still going to be flowing into DC from at least a support on the lobbying side. And then you look at the potential of the lieutenants that could support each potential president here. It looks like this is kind of a win-win for crypto in general. Is there anything that worries you right now that could be like, all right, this is going to come out of left field. We've really got to be concerned about this?
I agree. I think it looks like a win-win right now. And it's hard if you're in the crypto industry to sit here on election night and be optimistic. But I think there are so many reasons to be optimistic. I think just from how, scarred we are from the years past of trying for relevancy.
Don't believe it.
What I think could come out of left field, or maybe could hinder this optimism is, let's say Harris wins tonight. We have, a Democratic sweep. Harris isn't really willing to go out on a limb and be pro-digital assets. She felt the pressure because there was campaign financing coming in. She saw the political pressure. She heard from some of the younger members of the party in the House and Senate. She heard from Mark Cuban, as we talked about. And she says, you know what? I'm actually not that interested in it. I'm not going to care. And I'm going to allow the voices in the Senate, be Sherrod Brown, Elizabeth Warren, or in the House, Maxine Waters, Brad Sherman, and the like, continue to lead and do whatever they want. That would be very scary. On the Republican side, it's if Trump wins and he says, you know what? I'm very pro-crypto, but I don't really have a plan. I don't have a lot of policies to put forward. I'm not going to wade into the legislative fight. There's other issues. We've got big tax bills that need to go forward because the Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, all those provisions are expiring next year. That, you know what, I don't care about this. The one thing that no one's talking about, and God forbid, I'll say it right now, is some kind of black swan event, some kind of market failure like FTX that derails the whole thing, and then we're starting again from 10 years ago.
Well, I think that's the thing that you've got to look at in any of these risk markets out there right now. And I think many people are somewhat ready for those things. If you look at the amount of challenges that crypto in general, blockchain as a whole has really taken on over the past several years, but also how much has come forward. So much from a legislative front, what we've seen on the bipartisan side, and also I think maybe finally DC's acceptance of where blockchain is coming from. So I think that's a big key factor here overall. Obviously, if you guys have not checked out the Digital Chamber, go over to digitalchamber.org and you can catch Cody and many of his other team members over there that are doing a great job in supporting what's happening here in the blockchain industry and their advocacy there. So thanks for all you're doing, Cody. We do appreciate it. Before I let you go, though, what do you have an opinion on who's going to win tonight?
Well, if I go by Polymarket and the betting markets overall, right. I think it's going to be Trump. I think it's going to be a Republican Senate, and I think it'll be a Democratic House.
Democratic House. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. I mean, listen, you've got your ear right there on the pulse of DC, so we'll definitely be looking at. And I'm going to be visiting you guys up here in December. We're going to be heading to DC.
Can't wait.
Get a chance.
Come to the swamp.
It's going to be fun. We'll get a chance to see some interesting things, I'm sure of it. But anyway, Cody, it's been great having you on tonight. Thanks so much for taking time.
Yeah, thanks so much. Enjoy tonight.
All right, so another good interview there. I think, as we continue to cover our coverage throughout the week, we will be bringing you guys a ton of interviews this week on the channel. Make sure and just jump over to the YouTube. Well, you're already here, but we are streaming as well out on Twitter, so I'm kind of talking to multiple audiences here. But right now, take a look at Polymarket. Right now, we've got some movement, 128 electorals. Now, this is a little early because we are still seeing from the primary polls out there, Trump at about 105, but right now, Stand With Crypto has 128 electoral votes to 67 of Kamala Harris. And of course, we are at 21 million votes right now versus 18. So Trump holding the popular vote as well. Look at the numbers, though, coming in on the House of Representatives, 139 pro-crypto candidates, 53, still a little bit dense there, 6 pro-crypto candidates in the Senate. So again, this is very easy to kind of track along, but some of the states that we continue to watch is going to be Pennsylvania. And it's very early. I think it was 13% of the vote just a minute ago from the team that is in Pennsylvania. Harris is leading Pennsylvania right now, but very early on Pennsylvania. So if Trump wins Pennsylvania, he wins this election. So this is a very key state right now, especially with some of the states starting to show some very interesting points here. Polymarket, let's go over to Polymarket and just off with Cody Carbone there. Let me refresh this. Now Trump up to 71%, a 12-point move in literally that last half hour on Polymarket, 71.1 versus a 29% right now. Remember, this is the betting market, guys, so just be aware of that. You can kind of take a look at some of the key states right here. We'll go into the swing states. Georgia, Trump dominating right now on Polymarket. He will get 16 electoral votes if this holds out. Pennsylvania still up, but yet not in the pure vote, which we'll still see coming out, but holding a commanding lead, at least on the betting markets. This could switch very quickly. Trump up in Wisconsin, Harris up in Michigan right now. And what do we have? We've got 154 update from CNN, 154 delegates to 27 of Harris. So movement all over the charts right now. Pennsylvania is going to be key because we know what the battleground states are looking like, at least in some of these areas. And of course, remember, if we get into some of these, let's go over to 270 and let's take a look at where we're holding right now. At the current, I'm going to reset the map and go into Yeah. Okay, hang on. We've got new stuff coming in. Poly market odds right now. This is now holding. This is the poly market odds holding at 287. You can kind of see that right there for Trump. This would, of course, win him the election right now. And the one that is important is back over to Stand With Crypto. Man, we are moving around like crazy here. I want to go to Stand With Crypto and down to, here we go, Sherrod. Right here, Sherrod Brown has now been flipped. Moreno is, so this would be huge. This would be a huge win because this is a spike in the heart of the anti-crypto army. This would be a big one. Bernie Moreno coming in strongly supporting crypto, holding a 23% with 1.3 million votes. Man, this is a close race. Going to get in there. This is one I want you guys to keep a close eye on, is the Ohio Senate race right now going on for sure. I want to cut to a clip real quick. And this one is getting into where, executives believe the trend is going around crypto, blockchain, and really kind of the future of digital assets as a whole. I want to cut to the former eToro CEO. Take a look.
I fundamentally believe that inclusion is not possible without economic expansion. It is not possible. Because if you don't have economic expansion, the pie doesn't get big enough for other people to partake in it. So I also, as a business person, measure results, right? We have less banks than we used to. We have less access to capital than we used to. IPOs have been some of the lowest that we've seen since the Great Depression by some count in certain quarters that we've seen. And by all of those measures, we have failed. And as I said, when that fails, democracies are in danger. Because without capital formation, there is no inclusion. The income gap in America, 60% of it is because of asset gap. Yeah. It's not income gap. I fundamentally believe that ownership changes people's psychology. 60+% of households own in America versus high teens in Europe, right? I serve as an advisor on the advisory board of a company called INX, which is tokenizing assets. So they're tokenizing securities that are very attractive for people in the U.S. to be able to access in other parts of the world. People want to take in ownership, and ownership creates wealth. Wealth creates equity. It is the definition of it. And I think that that's an existential question we should ask ourselves. What happened to the capital formation mandate? And I think we have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, that might be where democracy is in danger.
Interesting. No one's necessarily making a play for enabling people to own things. Can
I just add to that? Because I want to make it very explicit. I'm an Ethiopian immigrant. I grew up in a repressed society, so that's why I love American democracy, right? I came here, my first home. There was no way I would have been able to own my first apartment without the innovation of HELOCs. My first stock that I bought in college because a brokerage company could let me open an account. My first crypto asset that I bought because a crypto wallet was able to be available to me. How dare anybody tell me that I cannot get access to that because I'm not born with a trust fund?
Why do you think regulators are having the problem in terms of making that balance?
Yeah, and I think there are individual regulators that are doing their part and trying to do their part. I do think the fish, as they say, from the head, right?
All right, so this is, continued to show, I think, support of business in general, kind of going in the right direction. More news coming in right now from Polymarket. It looks like we might have a balance of power shifting to the Republicans. A 56% Republican sweep right now is the probability on Polymarket, with, of course, a 72 holding on the presidency. The Senate looks like it's in the bag, and the House starting to lean Republican. This would be a big, big upset for the Democrats if this in fact does happen. Trump now back up to 150, or Trump at 154 right now on delegates and 27 to to Kamala Harris. So as we continue to watch a lot of these states rolling in, Pennsylvania is, of course, going to be a big one. Georgia continuing. It looks like it's going to hold in the map. Ohio is holding as well. And I'm going to go back to 270. Georgia looks like, we'll just paint up Georgia right now. Ohio's holding in. Pennsylvania, very, very key position right now. And that's if, remember, we still think that Nevada is going to turn, Arizona is going to hold. And if Pennsylvania were to hold, that pretty much would get it right into a position to win for President Trump. So it's going to be interesting. We'll still keep that one on resetting the map there. So a lot happening here. We'll take a few questions on that before we get out of here. I do want to go into another clip, and this is getting into where some of these associations, because what you guys need to be aware of, there's a big contingent of associations that are starting to play into the future of crypto. Part of that is the blockchain association, Kristen Smith, and I want to go over to a clip from her, because this will get into where I think this really makes this year a big opportunity for crypto holders. Take a look.
I mean, listen, I think we've seen a lot of polling. 1 in 20 voters in swing states considers cryptocurrency an important issue. Poll after poll throughout the spring and summer has shown that this is something that people care about. And so, yeah, I do worry that she is at a disadvantage because she doesn't have a more thoughtful and defined position.
Yeah.
Again, as we said, she's had time restrictions. There's reasons for it. But yeah, I think if we find out that she loses Pennsylvania or Michigan or some of these swing states by a few thousand votes, and that there are actually also a few thousand people who voted solely on crypto, it's going to be Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren's fault. I think that they did a huge disservice to the Democratic Party. Fortunately, I think there are a lot of Democrats in office of sound mind that have come up independently and are kind of isolating them and not letting them be kind of the thought leaders for the party anymore, because I do think it puts them at a disadvantage. That being said, though, I do think that if she wins, I think we can get her there. I think there are enough individuals around the country. There's a sophisticated industry. There is a very active sort of crypto advocate class. And if the political environment is ripe, that I think we can get her to the right place. It's just going to take some time.
All right, that was an interview that I did with Kristen not too long ago, and I think the good thing is she's kind of pointing to both candidates as an upside here for crypto in general, and I think that's the big play here. But at the time we did that interview with Kristen, she was still doubting whether or not we would win the Senate, and it looks like it's very. I want to say we, meaning the potential pro Senate could play out, and I think that's the big factor here again. So if you guys are not following along over on Stand With Crypto, again, taking a look at the total numbers, I wanted to kind of refresh this actually. Let's go in and refresh it. Numbers are right now 156 right now on pro crypto candidates, 8 on pro crypto Senate candidates. So a very, very strong showing right now. Again, listen, there was a lot of money spent on this election, so it's going to continue to kind of go in this direction. We've got keeping a quick look at the electoral. Harris has picked up a handful of electoral votes in some of the Northeast states, so she's now holding a 30 electoral votes, 154 on Trump. Colorado is starting to report. It looks like Harris is going to win Colorado, which was anticipated on the western states out there. And we do have a poll, so make sure and hit the poll tonight. I want to get you guys' last opinion on who you think is going to win Pennsylvania. And I want to go to another clip here, and this one is Mark Yusko. I think you guys are going to like this one. Mark has a very interesting way to look at the markets. Take a look.
If Trump wins, and we'll see what happens, but it looks good. He's basically said, look, I'm going to be pro-crypto. I don't think he may actually be pro-crypto. I think his kids are, but I think he's smart enough to see, there's 260 million people that own this thing around the world. If I make them happy, they'll vote for me. That works. Not all of them in the US, but I think he figured that out. So he's talked about things like a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That would be hugely beneficial for price. Harris, on the other hand, why she didn't just jump on the bandwagon? I don't know. I mean, ideologically, she didn't want to piss off the Elizabeth Warren crowd. I don't know. Huge mistake in my mind.
Yeah.
I think she
It
lost
is an odd situation,
a
that's
whole
for sure.
bunch of voters. Being a political candidate and saying, I don't like Bitcoin, alienates a large voting bloc that likely is going to swing the election.
Well, I think a lot of people are looking at the Harris camp, if they were to get in, that we could see literally a choke point 3.0, something that's even more accelerated. Yeah. And that, of course, would have an impact on the crypto market, especially digital assets overall. Obviously, that also accelerates
short-term, Paul.
Yes,
I totally agree with you. Short-term, and she claims that she would leave Gary Gensler in, who, just based on data, and this is probably not a good idea for me to criticize the guy that regulates me, but based on data, probably the worst SEC chair we've had. Yeah. In a long time. There probably were some before I was born that were worse, but really bad on the data, just on the data. She said, Ms. Warren, look, John Deaton should beat Elizabeth Warren, but my guess is, something will happen and he won't win, but he's way more qualified as a candidate. He's, he's a super great guy. Would, if I lived in Massachusetts, I would vote for him tomorrow. But hopefully he'll win. But my guess is Elizabeth finds a way to get it done. But not wanting to tick off that base, I just think is a mistake.
All right, there. That was good. I think that was a good interview. You guys can, by the way, you can go back and check the Mark Yusko interview out, the Kristen Smith interview. We have all that available for you guys on the channel, so you can check that out. This, of course, is John Deaton right now doing his announcement and concession speech. So he did concede over there. So again, a sad day for Deaton, but also I think a positive day for crypto because you have a guy that has really pushed the ball forward. And I think helping crypto candidates in general kind of maybe finding their way through the political navigation of running a campaign of people that have never done it before. You got to remember, he went up against a lifelong politician in Senator Warren, and Deaton is not that. He's a true business guy that has been fighting for crypto rights for quite some time. Obviously, coming out of the Ripple case for sure. Let's go over to our poll and take a look at what you guys think are going to happen in Pennsylvania. All right, who wins Pennsylvania? Wow, Trump is 78%. What do you guys know? Does Polymarket know that? Pennsylvania coming in? Let me look at Polymarket. Let's go over here and look at Polymarket and see where Pennsylvania is holding. 59, still 59. Let me refresh that. Maybe some data that's not, no, it's, 58, 59. Okay, so that one is the key one. Notice here the popular vote also, Trump almost up to 40% right now, up 11 points on the popular vote. That would be a first if he were to win the popular vote. So a lot happening right now. Trump holding a commanding lead in the Electoral College and also in the popular vote by a slight margin. And his Electoral College lead right now is 150 to 30. And of course, still very early coming in on that for sure. Let's go over and take a look at Sherrod Brown. I want to take a look and see what's happening up there on that race. Oh, wow. This one's getting closer and closer. 25-66 for Bernie. He's on the command right now. He's picked up a point. 1.5 million votes, 1.55 to 1.4. Guys, this would be huge. You do not know how big of a race this is for getting crypto regulation through and really kind of demolishing what could be the anti-crypto army. So Sherrod Brown, a big nemesis of the crypto community, might be getting unseated there by Bernie Moreno. We had a clip of him earlier in the podcast. So again, if you guys have been watching this, and first of all, thank you for coming in tonight. Make sure and smash a like. Just hit the like button. We want to know if you like these kinds of in-depth coverages, multi-pieces of content, trade data, analysis from some of the top people in the industry. Is this what you like? Do you like individual videos? Give us some insights to what you guys really like to see here on the channel, because this, of course, is part of your channel. You guys are help making, PBN make it to what could be 1 million subs. We are now cracking 713,000 subs. And that only happens with people like you. This means that crypto is winning. Crypto is winning in a very big way. You guys, of course, make sure and subscribe to the channel already. And if you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in on that, because that is our own way of connecting to you. You're in an email list. You can also ramp up into other groups and memberships, but best thing to do is hit the Diamond Circle down there. We will be covering a lot more interviews this week. We'll be back with you tomorrow announcing, I think, the new president of the United States and potentially what could be a raging bull market. We'll get into charts and all sorts of cool stuff. And we also have a ton of interviews this week, so be on the lookout for that as well. We'll put those up in the lives. By the way, we've started to go live on Twitter. First of all, you guys listening on Twitter right now, kudos to you. Thank you so much for coming in over there, both on my account, which is just @PaulBaron, or you can go to @PaulBaronTV. Either one of those two Twitter accounts, X accounts, we're streaming live simultaneously now with YouTube as well. So make sure and catch us out on all those spots right there. And of course, we'll catch you next time right here. Instead of TechPath, it is Crypto for America. See you guys tomorrow.